Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome as I call to order the April 14th, 2022 special workshop of the Escambia County School Board. The purpose of this workshop is an open discussions on items brought forward by the board and the superintendent with a review of our regular meeting agenda items. I ask that you silence your cell phones at this time. If you wish to speak to either an agenda item or at public forum, you must complete the speaker request form found on the table at the rear of the room and bring it forward to Ms. Buswell at the front table. She's holding her hands up. Okay, our first item is the Education Pathway School Age Child Care presentation, Mr. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon we have Aisha Atkinson with our Career and Technical Ed who will come and introduce to you outstanding group of students, and we are thankful that they are here today. Ms. Atkinson.
I'm going to let the students speak for themselves. I'm going to let you start. We have Michaela and Adia are going to start and close the video presentation. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Michaela Levins, and I am a student in the Tate High School Early Childhood Academy. The education career pathways include child care workers, directors, teachers' assistants, pre-K to post-secondary education, business owners, and administrators. Our school-age child care centers in our elementary school are our training grounds. We learn how to manage children, create lesson plans, and work one-on-one with the child. It takes a community and businesses to sustain the workforce, including the Early Learning Coalition of Escambia County, the Community Action Program Committee, Head Start, Pensacola State College, the University of West Florida, the Escambia County School District Human Resources, and teacher certification departments, Ready Kids and Achieve Escambia, to name a few. We would like to thank these advisory members, and we'd hope you enjoy our presentation and find it informational. Thank you.
My name is Regina Holland. I work at Washington High School here in Pensacola, and right now we are over at Home Elementary, which is right behind our high school. I'm over here with my early childhood 2-3 students. We come over here every day. I have 29 students that come over here with me. We work in the pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade classrooms. We love working with the administration. We work closely with the curriculum coordinator, Ms. Mott, over here. In some remediation small groups with some of the first graders from the classroom here. I have 12 students currently working on their CDA, Child Development Associate Credential, their industry certification. I have 4 that have already completed their observation here at Home Elementary. All have been in the pre-K classrooms over here. The remaining 8, I have 3 that will do their infant toddler CDA at a local child care center, and the other ones will do their CDA observation over here at home also.
Hi, I'm Cassidy. I'm a junior at Washington, and I'm in the Early Childhood Academy. I'm also a dual enrollment student at PSC, and I'm currently taking 2 classes there, but I plan on doing full dual enrollment next year. I'm working towards my CDA this year, so hopefully it'll be done by the end of this year. If not, I'll be finishing it at the beginning of the school year next year. I plan on becoming a teacher myself. I want to teach either kindergarten or first grade, or become a special education teacher.
We have been so excited about having the Washington High students be a part of our team for our kindergarten and first grade teachers. The teachers just rave about the work that they're able to do in their classrooms, giving some students that extra one-on-one practice in small groups.
Look at the word. Word is that? Hat. That's hot. Hat. Had.
a frog. Six is a frog. Yes.
When I make my rounds to the classroom, I've been very impressed to see how the girls interact with the students and kind of take the initiative to provide feedback to the teachers. Recently, I've started working on creating some small groups for several of the girls with some of our first graders that just needed a little extra help. And the kids are excited about working with them, and we are excited about the work they're doing here and the progress that we're seeing.
Hi, I'm Jody Higgs. I am the Site Director of Belleville Elementary's After School Care Program. We currently serve 40 families. Our mission is to provide safe, quality, affordable, on-site childcare. Currently, Workforce serves over 1,200 families in our district. I began working in after-school care when I was still in high school. I took part of the Early Childhood Academy at Pine Forest. I continued my employment over the years, where I return now as the site director. So it's an honor to be here every day.
My name is Alexandria Smith here at Escambia High School, part of the Early Childhood Education Academy. I'm so excited to hear that 15 students this year will be getting their CDA, and I can't wait to get mine.
Hi, my name is Saber Berry, and I'm in 9th grade, and I want to be a teacher.
Hi, my name is Jennifer, and I am a senior in Pensacola High School, and I finished my state exam, and I want to teach, and I'm working on my CDA national exam.
Hello, my name is Nyasha Banks. I am an OJT student. I work at Cordova Park, and I work with 2nd and 3rd graders.
Hello, my name is Victoria Moore. I'm an OJT student, and I work at We Care Academy, and I work with kids from newborn to 10 years old.
Hello everyone, my name is Carly James and I went through Early Childhood Academy at Tate High School. I graduated in 2020 and I'm about to finish my AA in elementary education at Pensacola State. I am currently a long-term sub at Belleville Elementary, which is where I went to elementary school. I hope to teach 3rd grade once I graduate college with my bachelor's degree and then go on to get my master's degree.
Hello, my name is Adia Payne. I am a student in the Escambia High School Early Childhood Education Academy. In conclusion, last year, 23 students earned their Child Development Associate. This year, 43 students are pursuing their CDA. So far, over 100 Academy students have earned this credential. This national industry certification includes developing a portfolio, being observed by an independent reviewer on the job, and taking an exam at a testing center. This certification is worth 9 college credits. This experience prepares a student to be college and career ready. From workforce surveys done of Escambia County teachers, 86 teachers have shared that they started out in one of our education pathway academies. As we strengthen our education pathway academies, we look forward to increasing dual enrollment opportunities and practical experiences for those students interested in secondary education, while maintaining a commitment to early childhood and improving school readiness. Thank you.
I want to thank you all for coming out today, and thank you for the work you're doing. It's really exciting when I'm in schools and I see at some of our elementaries our students in action, actively helping our students in those early grade levels, and just encourage you to continue the good work and continue preparing yourself for those future teaching jobs.
Board?
We have new gizmos up here. So please forgive us. First of all, thank you very much for being here. And secondly, thank you for those who have announced and those that are considering going into the education field. And we want to continue to encourage you to do that. This gentleman over here in the red has contracts ready to be signed. And so get to know him, or I don't see some of his other ladies. with him. But don't let anybody kid you. We want you. We want you to come back. Some of us right here on the dais, I am a graduate of Pensacola High School, and I returned, and I have taught for 36 years. And so I would like to say education is a wonderful field. There's a lot of things that people say about it. Please, my wife and I, she did 35, I did 36. We're doing quite well in our old age. So please consider that, keep coming, and if you ever have, seriously, if you do have questions about employment, that's Mr. Keith Leonard. He is a graduate of Tate High School, and he will be glad to talk to you. So thank you very much for being here today.
Patty.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that we have several community members that were mentioned as partners with our early learning academies. If you're here, would you stand and be recognized? I really appreciate the fact that not only the district but other community members are giving a chance to these students to actually use their skills and realize already what teachers do to touch the future. So again, I will echo Mr. Slayton. He should have brought contracts with him. But thank you for being here, and to you partners out there, thank you for your support of our program. We know we've got to grow our own in order to be successful, so thank you.
Dr. Edler?
Thank you so much. I've not been here in a while, so I didn't know this little red button was here. So I want to commend you for selecting the Early Learning Academy. And for these particular reasons, when you say early learning, that's a devastating impact on a child's life, what happens in those early stages of development. But in terms of where you can go from here, there are many potentials that can grow out of that Early Learning Academy. So I encourage you to continue on to other fields and use this as a basis for your learning.
Paul?
I want to thank you for your presentation too, and I'm proud of you all for selecting the Early Childhood Academy. You know, if you end up being a teacher, we would be glad to have you. But the skills that you're going to get will help you in life with your own children, family members, and everyone you come across. I was earlier today at the Early Learning Coalition meeting, and the number of possibilities for jobs and other placements is tremendous. And your help is needed as you go along to make sure that our children in the community are ready to enter kindergarten. So the things that happen at that level are important. Your work with our students in the elementary schools, and I know that we've had fine teachers come through those academies through the years. I could name a few that I worked with at West Pensacola Elementary and other schools. Knowing that you're from multiple places is a good thing. Tate, PHS, Escambia, appreciate all that, and the support from the workforce department, from the community, from everyone that's here. Thank you.
Yeah, and I just want to congratulate each and every one of you, because it's such an important field you're going into. And yes, I would like to see Keith with contracts here for you to sign, because we need every teacher. I would like for the students to stand up so we can give you applause, because for students, please stand up. All right, there we go. Thank you. Great presentation. Okay.
Could I say?
Yes.
I had teased the Escambia group earlier. I said, okay, this has to be a Title IX kind of offense. I'm not seeing any guys sitting out there with that group. and as the father of three, I know the guys need to know how to take care of kids also, and grandkids. So anyhow, get out there and recruit girls.
Yeah.
You got a boyfriend somewhere that you could drag in there and make them do. Thank you.
All right, thank you, ladies. Okay, we're going to move to our next item. It's the calendar. Does anyone have anything to add for April?
Can I just say I'm being told that we might need to refresh our devices.
I gave up.
Oh, no, I mean, again, your own?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm just going to be on the script here, so I rely on y'all if you catch something for me. Okay, so we're on April.
Can I ask a question? The retirement ceremony tomorrow, is it, like a 10 to 12, you need to be here that whole time? Or, okay, I just didn't know whether there was a specific time where you were going to recognize those that are retiring. I wanted to be sure and be here by that time.
No, ma'am. It is, we will start, obviously, at the beginning. There will be remarks and congratulatory things like that, but no, ma'am, because of people may have to come and go with their own schedule, but we would love to have people the entire time.
Well, I just didn't want, I planned to be here the entire time, but I wanted to kind of know if there was a specific time that you were going to recognize people.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question with the Northwest Florida Construction Career Days. I know that it's in Milton, but I don't know the location.
It was at the state fairgrounds.
Fairgrounds, yeah, state fairgrounds.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
It's a 2-day event. I just went one day.
Yeah, and it's one of those drop in, drop out.
Yeah.
And then for its construction career days, do we get to drive like bulldozers and
No.
backhoes and?
They haven't let me, but that could be a,
Well, I could understand that.
They're not going to let you drive a bulldozer, Paul.
we're closed-toed shoes.
We don't have that much liability insurance. All right, so we're on April.
And don't forget the Student of the Year event. We're getting to get into that season where we get to recognize all of these people,
Oh, yeah, the Wahoo Stadium.
our students who have done amazing things.
Wait a minute, y'all are mentioning two events. What event are you talking about?
Student of the Year is on the 26th, and then the Teacher of the Year thing at Wahoo.
Yeah,
Stadium is
that's the 21st.
Yep.
Yeah.
The retirement thing's tomorrow.
And Mr. Chair, you can take all the classes off for me in April. The classes that are on here.
The classes you got?
They can be scratched off.
You said they can be scratched out?
Yes, off.
Elizabeth? Okay. All right, I'm going to move over to May, but if you got something in April, just let me know.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I just was told about an event that we'll probably get invitations to, but I thought, well, we've got the opportunity. On the 5th of May, at Booker T. Washington's pool area will be the Escambia County's Water Safety Day, and it'll be 8:30 to 1:30, and the students participating will be from Lincoln Park and Sherwood. This is the event where they take these students in and help them with to learn about water safety. There's a day of classroom, and then this is in the water. Students from Washington High School and other venues come and work with the children in the water. I think this is a very, very important program. It's been going on for a number of years. Living here surrounded by water, our kids really need to know how to be safe in the water. So just thought you could put that on the calendar.
Excellent program.
It's from 8:30 to 1:30.
Okay.
On the 17th of May, we have our board meeting, but that's also the Tate FFA banquet. I don't know.
Made it tough, didn't they?
if it would be possible to move, well, we can't do that, never mind.
No, and that's not the first time that's happened. So I've already been in communication with them.
The Cox Heroes event is on the 2nd. Do we have, would it be on the district calendar or will it be on each individual high school's calendar when they have their senior night?
I got to answer that.
I don't believe it's on
Yeah,
district
here it
calendar.
comes.
Schools typically put it on their calendar, but we can, if you think that's a good idea, but.
We're going to have a conversation about that
Okay.
in a few minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to be sure of where it's located.
And as far as the FFA, Austin Corson told me yesterday they were trying to move that to see if they could, but he didn't confirm that, and I asked Mr. Harold to check on that. So they were trying to move that banquet date from the board meeting night. Because when I said when he asked who's coming, I said that's a night that we're all going to be at the board meeting. So I think he's trying, but I'm not sure if there's many, most of the days are at that time of year are full with other events, so.
Right.
We'll let you know.
Before you leave, Ms. Morgan, on the 25th and 26th, the major graduations, do we know who's scheduled on which day and the times?
Yes, the calendar's out there.
Yeah.
On the district site, we've had out there for a long time, so we have all 4 per day,
Okay.
full day. But if you'll click on, under calendars on the main page and click on, there's one for
One
graduation.
that says graduation.
Oh.
And Elizabeth, you'll update our, okay, thank you.
I can get you a copy, but
Well,
it is out there as well.
Yeah,
so-
Elizabeth's
okay.
going to update our
There.
board calendar.
It's there. We just have to look,
Okay.
which is a problem for me.
Anything else for May? If not, we're going to move on to June. I do have one item, it's on the 16th, is to confirm that we will have the agenda discussion workshop at 9 a.m. If we have any issues with that. I was asked to ask that, so yes, Elizabeth.
We're doing this is because the offices are closed on Friday, so usually we move to a joint workshop on Thursday, but we haven't advertised this yet, so we just need to confirm that you do want to do it on Thursday at 9 a.m.
I'm fine.
It'll be similar to today,
Yes.
combining the discussion and agenda.
Dr. Adler, you good with that date? Okay. Patty, Bill, good? All right.
And before we move on, I just want to say, depending on how long the meeting goes, I will be wandering out if we're still here at 5:15, because I have to be somewhere by 5:30.
Okay. Let's hope we're out.
I didn't want you to think I was just skipping out. How many of us are going to the summer conference for FSBA?
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that.
I'll give you a 50-50.
Okay.
All right.
Real commitment.
Huh? I'm real committed, yes.
While it's kind of quiet, if I can, I'd like to say how great the Special Olympics event was yesterday
yes.
at Tate High School.
Yes.
It was tremendous. I wish that the principal was still here before she left. The neatest thing about it was the Tate High School students.
Yes.
The high schoolers enjoyed the Special Olympic events as much, if not more, than the children who were there participating. And they were so good about making sure that every child was involved and every child was cared for and watched over, and that the kids were able to tell them what events or what things, games they wanted to do. They made sure that happened. And the look on their faces was heartwarming. And the administration was there too. So thanks to Tate High School. Miss Morgan, I guess if you'll let her know that was really appreciated. It was super.
Great job. I know Mr. Bill Slayton was there right along with us.
Yep.
Very good job. Okay, I'm gonna say we're done with the calendar unless somebody says anything.
Oh, I was going to look
All
and
right.
see if it's on here. Because we don't have Saturdays. I don't know how many of you are aware that the Congressional Art Competition Awards ceremony is on Saturday, the 23rd, from 10 to 12 at the Artel Gallery. And, you know, our students may get to put their artwork up. So I was just looking at my calendar to see what else I had on it.
Yeah, I think we all got an email on that one.
That's at 10 a.m.
Uh-huh. And our students' exams get into full swing early May, FSA.
That all you got, Patty, or?
It's that y'all are concerned about, yeah. I will be out of town. I don't know whether it's on here or not. In May, I'm leaving on the 19th, and I'll be back on the 23rd. So I don't see anything other than I will miss the Westgate graduation, and I'm sorry about that.
Okay, if that's it, we're gonna move on to our next item. Public forum update. Mr. Superintendent, do you have anything to report?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we do have a couple updates. We had a number of speakers with the IB testing, and that has moved forward. Currently, and Mr. Wyndham has been working with the usage form, getting all the payment. The payment actually happens after the testing is completed. That's the process. So everything looks like it is moving forward and lined up, so that will be taking place. We also had a speaker about the flight adventure deck, but that's an agenda item we'll be updating on. And I think those were the ones that were needing updates at this point.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
With regard to the PHS-IB, the facilities use agreement with UWF, I anticipate that may end up being a late add to the upcoming board meeting agenda because there is some rather concerning indemnification language in there, which I am trying to work through with General Counsel to UWF. There's also some background screening requirements for people who are serving as proctors. There's a whole lot more that needs to be sorted out with this. And when it comes to indemnification language, the superintendent does have some independent spending authority, but I am of the opinion that only the board can agree to indemnify another entity. So that agreement may be something that will require board approval if I can't get these issues resolved with their general counsel. Hopefully, I'll have something by tomorrow.
Okay, good deal. Board, any comments? Patty?
And the agreement you're working on, is that just a one-year agreement, or is that a multi-year?
It's a one-time use.
Okay.
All right, I'm glad that's moving forward. Thank you, Mr. Superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other comments? Okay, if not, we're going to be moving to our next agenda item, and that is Ms. Hightower, the district website calendar.
Yes, I put this on here because I was looking at the calendar on the 1st of April, and I was looking at my calendar, and I was realizing that there weren't many days in April that we didn't have something scheduled, and there was nothing on the district calendar. So it brought to my mind, who's in charge of putting things on the calendar? I know we had this discussion with our prior superintendent, and I just know we've been moving things, and with the branding and all that, I just wanted to have some clarification. I know Mr. Strother sent out something today about good news stuff, but I don't know that that had anything to do with dates. But I know Mr. Weiss is very good about getting anything that needs to be advertised. It gets put on the calendar. All of our meetings get put on the calendar. But as far as other events, I just didn't know who was in charge. I knew it wasn't me.
So we're going to ask Mr. Branton to come up.
Mr. Chair, not to co-opt his, but this is actually something that did not arise out of the rebranding. This was something that came at my recommendation based on looking at other school districts and how they advertise their meetings. It is also with an eye toward legislation that recently has been passed about how the school district can go about effectuating public notice. And also there is some new legislation that some of the things that we had not customarily publicly advertised will now need to be publicly, advertising is the wrong word, we need to provide public notice, and that can be effectuated through a school district's website. And so in looking at other school districts, I did find some other examples where they have a calendar that has every school board meeting with a link, so if they click on it, it'll have all of the relevant information. But then also there are events. So right now this is a work in progress. It is not meant to be something that the public can, should look to at this point for advice and guidance on what's going on in the school district. We do still have that section over to the right of the homepage that has the district events. But right now we are in the process of identifying which different meetings need to go on the event calendar as opposed to which different meetings need to go on the meetings calendar, and who is going to be responsible for making sure those items get on there. If you want to see an example of what it's ultimately going to look like, if you go to the school district's homepage and click on the calendar link, for the public meetings, if you go back to last month, and this is something that was developed with Mr. Ingram, Ms. Davy, and Mr. Ingram's department. If you look on the 24th, you have an entry for the half-cent sales tax. So these are the kinds of entries that people will be able to see on there. So that when they pull up the month, what we envision is for meetings, any kind of meeting that requires public notice, whether it's bid openings, whether it is half-cent sales tax committee meetings, employee benefits meetings, they will all be on this website, on this page. But if it is something that is a band concert, it's an event that we want the public to be aware of, but it doesn't legally require public notice, then that will be on the events calendar. And again, on the main page, it is the intention to maintain the events and public meetings item off to the right-hand side, and all of those items will be listed as current. These are the events that are currently happening. And then if you click on any one of those, it should take you over to the correct calendar, whether it be the public meeting calendar or it be the events calendar.
That's a very nice explanation, but that's not really what I was asking.
Oh, okay. I apologize.
But,
well, yeah.
But since she's mentioned that,
yeah,
and I know it's a significant cost for us to advertise in the P&J and everything, when do you expect that we can drop that?
So the legislation that would allow us to no longer advertise in the newspaper has not been signed by the governor yet. It has been approved by both houses. And what it actually requires is that we advertise on a website maintained by the county, not by us. There has to be a link to our website. I have already been in touch with the county attorney to find out, hey, are you guys even inclined to go down this road? And they're actually very excited about it. But that has not yet been signed. So as it currently stands, we still have to do our customary advertising. And as I mentioned, until this is signed, or until it is in effect, there is legislation which has been signed, which will require us to advertise a far greater array of meetings than we've customarily done through the News Journal.
Thank you. Patty, I'm sorry to cut in on, but since she was on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was a great explanation. I kind of got from it what will be an event that would be on there, but who's in charge?
Well, and that's what I was saying is we're trying to identify who. I had mentioned we are looking at the different kinds of meetings and who it is that is going. We are identifying those people right now to determine who it is that is going to be responsible for that.
Because when our prior superintendent here, it was very easy. If it wasn't an event that the public was invited to, it didn't go on the event calendar. But my other thing was, at that time, Ms. Stephenson was handling the calendar. So I didn't know whether Mr. Struthers had gotten that as part of his job responsibility, or.
He's shaking his head yes.
So.
I guess so.
So he's just waiting for direction on what he puts on there.
Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
exactly.
All right, stay tuned.
So you done with yours, or?
Yes, so.
Yes.
There's not an answer.
It's a work in progress.
Superintendent, do you have anything else to say on that, or on that subject?
No, I do have, Mr. Brandt, if you'd like to come talk, we've got a little clarification too on the public meetings too, if you could help us with that calendar.
Sure, be happy to. What is the question that you'd like me to explain?
So on the public meetings, right now it's showing blank,
Yes.
and I think we're still uploading and getting that
My
defined.
understanding is that Mr. Struthers is going to be
So the consent, we had a meeting about this last week.
which I was not at.
And it was preliminarily agreed at that meeting that if there were an event, that it would come to me. And I've got a process by which it gets to the events calendar. The public meetings calendar was a little more nebulous, but we could still follow that same process with no problem, as long as I'm informed of what needs to be on there. I will say, I heard somebody say Ms. DeWeese did an excellent job with the advertising and all that, so perhaps she could help with the public meetings portion of that.
My understanding is Ms. DeWeese, whether she's been assigned to do it or she's just has good initiative, is that anything that needs to be advertised because school board members are going to attend, she makes sure that gets on the calendar, and that there is notice given, that whether it be graduations or going to a barbecue somewhere together, she makes sure that all those things are advertised. But again, she's shaking her head. I think it's just she knew that they needed to be advertised, and she took that on as a great thing that she did to keep us out of trouble.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. So, I think that's something that y'all, I'm kind of at a loss when it doesn't sound like there is an answer yet. So I'd like to have that come back to us when there is an answer.
Right. Certainly, that's something that Mrs. Odom alluded to earlier. It is a work in progress. They are changing the policies on the calendars and how that's going to be defined.
And to be
You mean a procedure, because we don't have a policy.
Correct. Yes, ma'am.
If we need one, we'll create it.
And just to be clear, we are still effectuating public notice and advertising in other avenues other than the website in conjunction with getting this sorted out.
Okay, board members, any other comments? Okay, sir. All right, so I get to recognize myself next, and it kind of feeds into what Ellen was talking about on the one. I got some feedback from Dr. Danielle Thomas from FSBA and some other folks on the different bills. Because it was an early session this time, the governor has more time to slowly roll out these signing ceremonies, when he does it. So we know the big ones, and we got the SB 1048, the student assessments, the parental rights bill. That he signed that the other day, I think, in a meeting. So as they go out, so I got one document, and then there's a lot of bills that are still not signed by the governor. So it's going to happen. They'll probably arrange for the ones that we know that are pretty popular for him. They'll get them signed. So anyway, I think this last session turned out probably the best it could, considering some of the issues that were going on, especially with some of the school districts, with the legislators. So, you know, it wasn't as damaging as it could have been, you know. So, of course, we saw they got the 12-year school board term in there. I mean, Ellen had a conversation about that because they used a court case with a charter government as the basis. Okay, so, you know, normally the school board is a referendum. So whether somebody would contest that in the future, I do not know. So, yes.
What
Ellen?
Mr. Adams is referring to is, I will be curious to see if a legal challenge does not arise out of this, because customarily, because school boards are constitutional offices, any term limits should be imposed by voter referendum. The most recent attempt, I believe, was in 2019, and it failed because the Supreme Court found that the description was unconstitutionally vague. It appears to me that this is an effort by the legislature to do an end run around that process. And there was a case where it was acceptable for the school board term limits were imposed in one particular county, but it was a charter county. And because of the different rules governing a charter county as opposed to a constitutionally constituted home rule school district, the rules were slightly different there. But this will be something that I will keep an eye on and will advise, but you guys all have at least 12 to 14 years before we need to start worrying about this.
I would think that that would be a topic of major discussion at the Florida School Boards Association meeting this coming June, and the school board's attorneys would take that up also, and so there's more to come on that. But I don't know if, because some people, Mr. Adams and Ms. Hightower, usually have a lot more contact with the FSBA other members and leadership, that you might have heard something in addition to it about the upcoming summer conference.
So far, FSBA has not hadn't decided whether they're going to weigh in on this or not. So normally you'll see some individual school districts, some of the ones that usually will do court cases. So some of them southern, well, you know, some people consider them the dirty dozen, you know. But if we'll probably see if something comes out of there. I mean, I won't be around here long enough to worry about no 12-year term limits myself. But the danger is, and I talked to another elected official the other day, because I told him, I said, watch out, you're next, you know, these local governments. But if they're going to come back next year and will it down to 8, will it down to 4, I don't know. And then no pay, all the different things they're doing. And a lot of this is being generated just by the clash they're having with the 12 school districts, where the 55, right? 55 of them doing it the right way. So, and no problem. So we got this little war that gets fought, and unfortunately every school district gets caught up in it. So, just the way it is. Other bills like the bus cameras, the speed zone, a lot of those bills, many bills, they're gone. They just dropped out, they're history. So I think you all have got the report from Jessica that shows all the different bills. So we'll see. But I think we did good on the budget. So the budget, I think, could have, you know, we always like more, but that came in and landed in the right place. And of course, you know, we have the $15 by October 22nd. And we also had the mandate on the teachers. That's a little farther down the road still on that one, right?
It is. It's in 3 years.
3 years, okay.
We have to reach that 47.5.
So that's going to be pressures, and we're blessed that we had a chief financial officer that's kept us in good shape. But if you look at some of the other school districts, like Hillsborough, some of the other ones that are really close on that fund balance, this is going to be difficult for them. So. The other issue I was going to mention, Commissioner Burgash let me know, and Alex Andrade and Michelle Salzman, he added the pedestrian overpass in Beulah to the TPO list. and it now sits at number 7. He had to do that. The governor's office will look at a project and see if it's on the TPO, and if it's not, he'll automatically cancel it off. So that was a step done. So we'll see how the governor lands on that one. So I appreciate Commissioner Begosh. He's also stating he's adding $500,000 into that project for that. So that's a good deal. Okay, any other comments?
I have a question. I think Dr. Smith and I talked about it, but because of the mandates about $15 an hour, I was wondering if we were anticipating having a bargaining session anytime in the near future.
Executive session.
Yes, and thank you for bringing that up. We do need to go ahead and schedule an executive session to get going on that, because October 1st is we must be compliant by October 1st, so.
Right, yeah, coming quick. Bill?
I think we've done this before. What do you think about having one in between some of the graduations? We're already there. And the facility allows us, we went to the second floor and had a nice session because everything else was going on downstairs and we didn't have to worry with that, and we were already there. So I'll let you and your staff discuss that, but it just worked out real well. And graduation is what, a month?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And I would guess Mr. St. Cyr would be able to give us the information he can by that time.
I see you, Ellen.
Go ahead. He said you could go ahead.
She was waving, I could see it.
I need to do a little bit of research into this, but if we are not actively at the table bargaining, and it may be premature to go to executive session.
Yeah, we can.
Right.
Yeah. In other words, you have to start the negotiation process. Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'd like to say we do have history of doing it.
Understood, and Mr. Leonard has just given me the high sign, so.
Yeah.
Okay, he's good at the high sign. Yeah.
I mean, it's not no formal declaration he has to do to start bargaining, is it? Or is there something he has to do officially to, yeah?
No,
Yeah. Okay.
I'll follow up with Mr. Leonard.
Okay. All right. All right, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. So,
Yes.
but that is something that we'll have to take care of and quickly. And that's where, it wasn't in categorical funding. They actually put the money in the base student allocation, right?
That is
Okay.
correct.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
So those additional funding pieces in the BSA will be the driver on this. And it is something we need to get out and working on quickly, because October 1st is a fast turnaround for this.
Now, I said something to the superintendent the other day, and I'm gonna see if the board attorney agrees with me. The law to comply with the $15, there's no bargaining with that at all. I mean, that's set in stone. It's whatever we do.
You may
that.
recall that last year, when we were required to get everybody up to, was 10 the first threshold? The board just approved the new salary schedules, because what we agree to in the collective bargaining agreement and with our salary schedules cannot conflict with the law. We are required to comply with the law. So
it'd be anything above 15. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure. Bill, did you have any other comment, or?
I'm just curious, does the attorney anticipate any counties that might file court cases saying that this was not legal?
I've not heard any of those discussions. Because while the minimum wage phase-in applies generally to employers, the requirement that we get there sooner was included in the appropriations bill. So that is legislation that has been approved by.
Even though the voters voted something different.
Right. We just have to get there sooner if we want our money.
Yes, Paul?
Along these lines, Ms. McCants, I guess you're in the hot seat since Mr. St. Cyr's not here today, but have we done any preliminary look at what that cost would be to get us at the $15 an hour, or, you know, ballpark figures? I know that it won't be down to the individual, but.
Well, actually, we have not gone through all the analysis yet, so I don't have any information today.
Okay.
But we will be working on that soon.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I guess we can put is it October 1?
First.
Okay.
October
That'd be something on the calendar.
So our windfall with base student allocation is a smoke and mirrors game, a shell game.
Yeah.
Because that money's already going to be used for something else. And I want to make that statement and get that out there, that people understand that, yes, the base student allocation went up, but that does not mean that we have any real discretion with that additional funding.
And we also have to remember, like, school districts like Monroe and some of the other high-cost ones, they're already above 15. Yeah, they're there. So I don't know in the bill, does it allow them just to, it's in their base student allocation, so if they're at 15, I guess they can just use it for whatever.
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, they would have that autonomy.
Yeah.
The other thing that this bill also has is it has some teeth with it if we don't comply, so.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Pretty sharp.
They're gonna have that claw back.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so is any other comments on this? No? Okay. I think we're on the 5-year strategic plan. No, flight deck. Okay, flight adventures. Yes, Mr. Fetsko.
I put this on the agenda because when Mr. Ruiz spoke with us previously, I thought that we needed to get a little research and get some background and get some factual information from what's happened in Escambia County and have the opportunity to discuss the flight adventure deck and Starbase and go from there. But I think that I was told from Mr. Marcanio that we have some information available, and if you want to proceed, that'd be great.
I appreciate that, and we do appreciate the opportunity to share some factual information about the Flight Adventure Deck program. Mr. Alabac manages that program. The teacher on special assignment works alongside all of the other TSAs and subject area specialists, so he has put together some information about the program for that has taken place this year. So if you will, please allow him to share his information. It'll take 3 or 4 minutes, maybe 5, and then certainly we'll be happy to answer any questions. So,
Now,
Mr. Alabac.
right before you start, Mr. Alabac, I do want to say again, and mainly for people who may be watching, there are 2 different programs.
He's
Starbase-
prepared.
okay,
He's
so
prepared to
he'll go into all
explain.
the-
He's prepared to explain.
That's fine.
What Flight Adventure Deck is and how that is different from the Starbase program. So,
All right.
thank you.
So that is correct, Mr. Fetsko. We have 2 major programs out there running right now, and that is Starbase and Flight Adventure Deck. Starbase is an elementary oriented program, whereas Flight Adventure Deck is middle school. They both are similar in the fact that they deal with flight and aviation science and the standards associated to their grade levels. So Starbase, all the work that's being done in the area of flight and aviation is associated to the elementary math and science standards, whereas the Flight Adventure Deck is all associated to the middle school standards. But both programs run simultaneously throughout the year. So there was some information shared about a concern about the decline in participation and potential support for the Flight Adventure Deck. And so what I'd like to do is share some information that helps close the gap and clear out some of the confusing information. Clearly, the last 3 years, we have seen numerous challenges throughout our district that affected many programs across our district. Flight Adventure Deck was no exception. And so I would like to share some of those challenges, not as excuses, but so that I have an opportunity to tell you how we address the challenges to show our resolve and commitment to the program. So the first, before we even got to COVID, We have had a bus driver shortage for a very long time, and it hit pretty high critical mass just before COVID occurred. That made us as a district re-examine what would our field trip policies be to ensure that we had drivers available for drop-off and pickups for schools. Knowing that our schools ended up in staggered times and things like that, and we had to expand the amount of time it took to deliver students because we had fewer buses that could transport students because we had fewer drivers. That means the window during the day of field trips had to be decreased. That was only done simply to manage within our human capital capacity to transport students safely to and from school and to and from field trips. But I want to make it clear that that restriction was not just to the flight adventure deck. That was applied to all field trips across the district. And that's very important to understand. So this was not we're not supporting flight adventure deck and we're going to reduce the amount of availability of transportation. That was a rule across the district for all field trips, elementary through high school. That window was only reduced to operate within the means safely to transport students to and from school and to and from field trip locations. So that was the first hurdle that occurred right before COVID. Then you had COVID. We went home spring, March of 2020, anticipating to come back and get ready for testing. And little did we know that we were going to end our school year that way. Well, when you start doing that, and you have a lot of scheduled classes occurring in the spring, that obviously affects the participation because we were not at school. Nobody was at school sites. They weren't at flight adventure deck. They weren't anywhere. They were home. We were at a stay put home order from the governor. So then you talk about what happened during COVID as well. As we started to come back in the fall, each district was challenged to come up with a return to school document, a series of safeguards that will take place to ensure that students, as they return back to, as they would say, brick and mortar school, that it was a safe way to do that. As part of that, we had made the decision as a district to not do field trips. We were already, that was consistent with our policy of not allowing people from the outside to volunteer in our schools. Why would we send our students out to the public? So being consistent in the policy concept, we didn't have field trips running for that first 9 weeks. So you start reducing the window of opportunity. Now, granted, we had already started the campaign to sign up for the following year in the spring prior to going into spring break where we shut down. So schools that had already scheduled had to cancel. So when you start looking at this is not about schools not wanting to attend. They had to make decisions that didn't necessarily reflect what they wanted, but in response to the COVID and other safeguards that were needed at the time. So as we look at what else will happen is during that period of time, we thought we hit critical mass back in 2020 in terms of bus driver shortages, and we discovered there was a new level of critical mass shortage. That critical mass shortage required another adjustment of the field trip window to be reduced by another 30 minutes. So now you're starting to see that your opportunity to participate in any field trip becomes much shorter, and the question becomes, can you actually fulfill what you need to do in the time period that you have after you're dropped off and need to be picked up? A school like Ernest Ward, the distance that it's located from between Ernest Ward and the Naval Museum puts it outside of reasonable services. By the time they get there, they might have an hour and they have to turn around and go right back to Ernest Ward again. That was not practical. So now you're taking out a subset of student population who they would love to attend but it's just not practical right now. And this is not about we're trying to isolate anyone. We're trying to safely operate within the means that we have. Then you also had, as if COVID was not enough, Hurricane Sally. We had some shutdown period time there. Schedules had to be readjusted. Testing schedules had to be readjusted. People had to say, well, I guess I'm not going field tripping on any field trips. I'm going to have to work on testing and other progress monitoring pieces. Again, when you start adding those pieces, sure, you start looking and going, gosh, we sure are not filling a lot of our spaces. Circumstantial things prevent schools from making those types of choices of saying, let's go do what we signed up to do. I'll get to some of that data in just a moment. So then when we talk about, I guess we're still kind of in the COVID. I like to think we're on the beyond side, so I labeled my notes COVID and beyond. Here's the other part. We know that what they would call right now the Great Resignation era is not just affecting bus drivers. This program, Flight Adventure Deck, has the teacher of the students not only present on what they call the deck, that's the classrooms out on the Naval Museum, they also have to co-teach. So the Naval Museum, or excuse me, the Flight Adventure Deck teachers on special assignment, there is one in Santa Rosa County and one in Escambia County. They co-teach together. If students from Santa Rosa are on the deck, our TSA is co-teaching there, and so is the teachers from there. If our students are there, then their TSA is co-teaching with our TSA and our teachers. So it requires training in advance to be able to do this. I mentioned the Great Resignation because if you've been monitoring the vacancies throughout the year, we have had math and science teacher vacancies beyond what we've ever seen before. It's always been one of those critical positions that people try to hire, but we're at critical mass. When you don't have teachers consistently staffed, you can't have them trained, and they don't even know that the services are available or have time to be trained at the last second and try to do that and keep up with everything that's going on. And we're even talking about some of the math and science vacancies were the department chair. So now you're talking about the internal support kind of collapsing with this Great Resignation piece. So everything I'm sharing is the challenges. They're not excuses, they're just the reality of the situations that we're dealing with. Then we took one more kick. Our own Flight Adventure Deck teacher on special assignment resigned on October 6th to take a job outside of our district. He had a great opportunity and we wish him well. But when you don't have someone help leading the program that you hired to do that, it's hard to keep that momentum, especially when you're looking at vacancy gaps in schools, for which they don't want those gaps either. So now when we look at understanding the data I'm about to present, you have to remember that FAD, number one, has been in existence since 1997. I say FAD, Flight Adventure Deck, sorry, that's an acronym that we use. Flight Adventure Deck has been around since March of 1997. That's a long time for a program to exist in a district. It didn't just disappear. There were no interruptions. We continued our commitment since 1997. So that needs to be said. Two, given all the challenges, we still found a way. I'm going to give an example. There is a bus driver critical shortage. I mentioned that, 2 different segments. However, I also need to mention that the math science specialist, myself, and the director of transportation at the time sat down and tried to brainstorm what are some other creative ways that we could try to still transport students there. It was even offered that we have the buses, we have the fuel, we just don't have drivers. If you got somebody at the school site with the CDL license who could break away and transport the students, you're welcome to check out the bus and do so. Fantastic offer. We went and did the research. Unfortunately, at the school base, there weren't any staff with a CDL license whose schedule was flexible enough during the day to give up their primary responsibility of what they're doing. So while we found some potential possibilities, we still face the reality of we don't really have drivers, period. But what I share that is because we didn't just give up. We were looking for ways to make that happen. So one of the ways that we did is, yes, we're still allowing field trips, because it would be very easy to say, in the shortages that we have with drivers, we will not commit to field trips now. That's just not practical for us. But we still, all we did was say you have to reduce the window. So what did we do? We adjusted the curriculum so that we can still accomplish the skills that are being taught and experiences had in the flight adventure deck just in a short amount of period of time. Ideally, we would return it back, and we can revisit that when our capacity warrants it. But at this point, our commitment is to go within our means, but not to give up. So then, what about this year? Well, let me give some information. First of all, we had 83 days allotted to Escambia County and 83 days allotted for Santa Rosa. 68 of those had been filled with schedules by Escambia County, 68 out of the 83. And remember, Ernest Ward was no longer able to do this, so we're going to have some reduction in days just because we have schools that can't participate based on their distance. 7 out of the 9 schools had already signed up for this year. But we had to have some major cancellations because of all the different challenges I presented. So we went from, we had 50, Tammy help me out here, 55? Yeah, 55 of the 68 days canceled because of the various challenges that took place. However, our resolve, we still work to have a 10-month full-time teacher on special assignment. Now let me explain. I told you it takes two TSAs, one from Escambia, one from Santa Rosa, plus the teacher who shows up. Well, what did we do in October when ours quit? We worked like crazy to find a substitute who would consistently show up, and we found one. Human Resource helped us. We ended up having to go through 2 different ones to fill in the time gap, but we were committed. Dr. Smith, Mr. Marcanio, and I sat and brainstormed along with our curriculum specialists, and we tried to figure out a way, how do we maintain our agreement that we've had with Flight Adventure Deck, even though we have this vacancy? Now, some will say, well, why didn't you advertise? So I'm going to repeat again. We had critical shortages in schools already in the area of math and science. It was not wise to make additional problems by pulling one more person out mid-year. So we said, what's another way without pooling people? We hired a substitute, and we're thankful for that sub who's out there helping to fulfill our duties. But that's what I mean by commitment. See, it would have been easy just to say, we need to stop, shut it down. The transportation, I shared it, but the other piece you have to realize, the transportation for Flight Adventure Deck is funded through general fund. Starbase right now is being funded through a grant, and we're utilizing a charter bus. When you start talking about, and this, the funding source for Flight Adventure Deck is long-term. It's sustaining. Again, I'm trying to echo back that we have a long-standing commitment all the way back to 1997, and we still have that same level of commitment. We're exploring creative scheduling. We know we've had to reduce it. So one of the things that I've already started talking to the Santa Rosa partners as well as the museum partners is to see if instead of going 2 days in the amount of time, can we sign up for 3 days to spread the same amount of hours we normally would have had instead of in 2 days, in 3 days to allow for transportation. That would cost a little bit more in transportation, but that's, again, just one of the options. A lot of logistics still has to be looked at, but we're still looking creative ways to try to increase the amount of time within our means. As the Director of Professional Learning, I have instructed 2 TSAs ago and our previous TSA that resigned in October to start developing online curriculum and resources that would allow schools to utilize the content and experiences at the FAD in a virtual environment. So again, even though we went through the shutdown phase and whatnot, we were still providing some aspect of the curriculum and experiences, like virtual, but better than nothing. And again, that was an attempt to continue our commitment to the program. I also want to mention that we could not have done these online video resources without the help of Escambia High School's Multimedia Academy, who students helped provide the technical skills to generate these videos that we created online. I pay extra hour work pay for our TSAs when they work on these projects so that they don't take time away from their students. We use our district allocated funds to allow that to happen. So that's going beyond our 10-month contract. I would just say that in terms of, are the numbers down? Yes. Did the circumstances give us every reason to say maybe we just needed to put a complete hiatus? Yes. But did we? No. Why? We were committed to ensure that we give the students every possible experience from the flight adventure deck that was within our operational means and safe to do so. So I would say, admit it, yes, the numbers are down. I would also say that the initial numbers for this year was to show that we were increasing our participation until the challenges presented themselves that they had to make different decisions. Not going to say schools made wrong decisions. They made great decisions about what they had to adjust for COVID, hurricane, all those things, and readjusting their schedule. But those are the reality. Those are the things that you don't see if you just look at trend lines without understanding the story behind those numbers. So to you, I would say this, Dr. Smith and the school board, I gotta say thank you, because it could have been easy for us to just give up. Those of us that are working with them are passionate about this program, and we want our children to have that experience. And as I said, it would have been easy for you to say, it just seems like a lot of work right now to make this happen. Maybe we just need to take a pause. We didn't. We remained committed with your support to allow us to continue to use the budget that we have, allow us to have the staffing that we have, and for transportation to continually find ways to still transport students, not just to FAD, but any field trip that we have, in spite of the shortages. So thank you.
Paul, you done?
Yeah, I wanted the information to be out there. I wanted us all to have a clear idea of what had happened, what transpired, and to have that information because it was presented by Mr. Ruiz in a different manner, and it did not give the circumstances, and it was hard to listen to. So we have the facts. We know what's going on. We know that the commitment's there. I don't think that that's gone away. But I don't know that there's much that could be done differently at this time in this school year. Thank you, sir.
Bill, do you comment?
Well, I think Mr. Fetsko addressed the situation from the last board meeting correctly. We were all blindsided, and as I heard information coming toward me that I had neglected the opportunities. Well, I didn't know I had an opportunity. I just got through finishing an opportunity with the elementaries and thought that was great. All of a sudden, here comes someone else saying that the board had ignored it, and I got a little defensive, and I would continue to do that because I wanted to make sure before that gentleman left that podium that someone said, no, that's not correct, and you need to get your details correct before you start presenting them as if the county is ignoring this great opportunity. So, Ms. Odom said I wasn't supposed to. I don't know that in my 14 years I've ever been told I can't address someone at the podium when they're giving incorrect facts. When they're finished, and I'll let them finish, but I want to make sure they understand. I think the county's doing everything that we can do. I appreciate your presentation. I don't think for any of us that have been around a while, there were any surprises. But you put everything out exactly as we all feel. We're trying, but we can't do everything that we have been doing in the past. And it's not a matter of not wanting to fund it, it's just a physical attribute of what's going on. Bus drivers, transportation, subs, all of those things can impact the students. And number one, students in the classroom are number one. And I hate for them to miss this opportunity, but at the same time, if they have to, I want them to be in the classroom. I want them to get the information that they need to progress and do well in the future. I appreciate your presentation, and I hope people are listening.
One more important fact that I failed to mention in terms of the proactive steps to show commitment, we did conduct our interviews last night for the 10-month TSA position. I'm not at liberty to discuss a name here right now. We're still in the process of finishing the interview or the hiring paperwork, but we did hire somebody for that, and we're ready to go. Ms. Danielson, the math specialist, and I met with representatives from Santa Rosa and the museum about 2 weeks ago, and we just had an organizational meeting. I promise you there's no animosity or anything. Everything's in good order. They're looking forward to working with our new TSA. They certainly appreciate all the extra measures we took to maintain the program, not only for ourselves, but to allow Santa Rosa also continue by working hard to have staff there available for them.
I see Patty Hightower has an orange light on.
Oh, I just wanted to say thank you, Mr. Alabac, because that was a very thorough presentation. And I'm very intrigued with the virtual environment option. There's a new charter school in Naples, Florida, that's a totally ocular virtual school, which I think will be interesting. But
Right.
but I think, I think even though COVID was a challenge, I think there are some things that may come out of that experience that we may find to be beneficial in the educational environment. So I appreciate your open-mindedness and your thinking about things outside the box.
One thing I have to say, Paul, is when's y'all's next meeting with the Navy?
Next month sometime.
Next month? That might be something to follow up with them, just to give them a little overview of where we're at on that. So that's why that committee was made, because we had somebody that really, they don't even know about this person that came and talked to us the other night. The leadership group that you have at that meeting. So it would be good to just give them a little update. And
We put that agenda together, myself and Commander Godby here, so I'll talk to him about that being a
Okay.
potential agenda item.
yeah, since it was live streamed, the public saw it, so it'd be good to follow
Thank
up on that. Superintendent, do you have any other comments? I see an orange light for you, so.
No, I just want to thank Mr. Marcunio and Mr. Alabac for their work on this and for keeping the program moving forward.
Yes, good job. How many we got that's in there, in the program now that's, I heard a number he said the other night. What's our current number that's participating? Oh, I see somebody walking up.
Somebody has the number.
Ms.
Current number of
Danielson?
students participating, let's see. For this year, we've had 320 students participate with 9 days. And we have 4 more days scheduled through May 12th right now.
Okay.
But again, a lot of that is because we had 55 days canceled to adjust for the multi-stacking challenges that they faced this year.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any other comments? Okay, all right. Okay, now, I had to watch where I roll my pen, because I'll get off on the wrong item. So now we're on the 5-year strategic plan. Mr. Superintendent, you have your presentation for us?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be passing out a handout, and Deputy Superintendent Payne will be kicking off this presentation.
Okay.
the handout mirrors the PowerPoint.
Okay, good afternoon. I will get started and be brief. Let me apologize in advance and see if I can click and talk at the same time. So, but really, our research briefing and strategic planning update will go to the first slide when we talk about research focus. We look at that with the question, and it simply says, how will Escambia County School District build a reputation as the first choice of parents to educate their children, the employer of choice among teachers and staff, and a growing point of pride for the community? So we start knowing where there is no vision, the people perish, and in this case, those people include our students. So we plan in 2 steps. We plan the work, and then we work the plan. That being said, in our planning, we have been in partnership with the ID group, community members, and leaders, and of course, those that make up this organization, including you as our board members. We have worked together, beginning with our core identity, which includes our vision, mission, purpose, and values, moving into this entire strategic planning cascade model. Our efforts from this model bring us to the refinement area of the areas of strategic focus, and you will hear more of that from Dr. Smith. This work we refer to as the above-the-line work. It is the line between strategic goal setting and the operational day-to-day carrying out of this plan. When we look at our research data and points, we follow the cascade model with input both from internal and external stakeholders. There has been research and a lot of voices, including our own, and that information has been taken to shape by has taken shape into what's being shared today. So you will again have the opportunity for input, for use, and revision as needed. When we look at our check marks, our post-research plan development, where are we? From December of 2021 to April 2022, through many discussions and workshops, we've been able to check off some of the areas needed to bring us to this point. And from the executive level, which will include our board, you as our board, the superintendent and executive staff, there have been many workshops, discussions, and meetings that have led us again to this presentation to you as a board today. And finally, where are we going? As a senior leadership team, we take our comments from you today and take those comments from you and thoughts for revision and presentation, hopefully in May. In June and July, we develop objectives for goals and for the departments. And in the fall, cascade department and school-based planning. And with that, because my part of this is very brief, but it gives me great honor to turn this portion over to our superintendent, Dr. Smith. And before he shares with us from the dais, we want to hear from him by way of video.
Hello. Thank you for taking a moment to hear this update on our school district strategic planning process. As I've said from the beginning, my first priority as superintendent is listening and learning from the people within our school system and our community. Last year, we began a process of researching, listening, and designing a path forward that would build on our strengths and galvanize our efforts around a collective vision of our future, together for our school district and our students. Through our research process, we've made sure that we heard representative voices from all parts of our school system, including leaders, teachers, staff, parents, community members, elected officials, and more. You may have been part of one of our dialogue sessions, an interview, or responded to an employee survey. I want to extend a personal thank you to each of you who have shared your perspective. Building on what we've learned, we've been working hard behind the scenes to craft a series of statements that will guide the future of our district in the form of a purpose statement, vision statement, mission statement, and core values. These statements were born from your insights, shaped by our internal team and approved by the school board. A purpose statement reflects the deep motivations for our work. Our purpose is to inspire, empower, and graduate students ready to contribute to society as productive, responsible citizens. A vision statement expresses our aspirations, that is, what we strive to become. Our vision statement is united for every student to succeed. While the vision is what we strive to become, our mission is what we do to reach our vision. Our mission statement is, Escambia County School District provides equal access to quality public education
that embraces the uniqueness and potential of each student. We live this mission every day through our commitment to the following actions. Number one, we engage employees in a shared commitment to our purpose and vision. Number two, we create a safe, equitable, and accessible learning environment. Number three, we empower students to break through barriers and overcome challenges to achieve their fullest potential. Number four, we build learning environments that facilitate closing the achievement gap and increasing the learning proficiency of all students. Number five, we deliver a future-focused curriculum with options, choices, and resources that equip students to successfully compete for jobs in the ever-changing marketplace. Number six, we graduate students ready to make a positive difference in their families, their communities, and the world. Core values serve as the foundation for a system of beliefs that guide our behaviors and decisions. Our core values are rooted in impact, believing education is a noble mission with the power to build community and transform lives. With this in mind, we commit to living the following values: a can-do attitude, integrity, community engagement, excellence, respect, and inclusion. We hope that you hear your voice in these statements. We are currently developing a strategic plan that will provide a path forward to achieving our vision by living our mission and values. This plan will be presented to the board for approval in May, and immediately after, I will be back with you for another update to share our next steps in this process. We have a bold vision. We have a clear mission. We're going to unite for the education of all students. We can, we will, and we must. I invite you to follow our progress online. Thank you.
So we will plan to have that go out to all employees to give an overview of the pieces that have already been decided upon and roll that out to them. Moving forward, we're going to get into the area of strategic focus. Used to call these pillars, but there are 5 of them. And from the area of strategic focus, then we will take that and go into goals, into the KPIs, and into the strategies. So that's the next piece that we'll take from there.
Could I interrupt just one? I love the video, and you said you were going to send it out to employees. I've gotten questions from those in the community that participated in some of the sessions, and they're wondering, what have we been doing? So I was wondering if there was any way that that video could be posted on our website so that others that participated in those discussions would know that there is something happening.
So I believe we can look at that. I know there's a strategy to do a community rollout after we were completed, but we can do some thinking about that and see, because I do think you make a good point, that it'd be nice to have an update.
What is the timeline to complete the strategic plan? I mean, what are y'all?
So we'll take it from the plan is, where we get the above the line and the below the line. Below the line, these activities going from the goals and the KPIs and the strategies. That piece, we'll take that as the executive staff and work with directors and people within our stakeholders within the organization to craft those. So our goal is to have all of that done by the summer. That'll be completed during the summertime. The goal is to have it ready to roll out at the beginning of the next year.
So August, you'll have it ready to go with the new school year?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's the goal, and then when we'll have a widespread rollout. So these are the areas of focus that we are looking for your thoughts and your reflections on. So the first one is, and you'll see that it has like a student focus, employee focus, and then more specific. So student focus, all students graduate ready to become productive citizens. Then there is a statement of intention, and that is Escambia County Public Schools upholds a student-first approach to prepare today's learners for tomorrow's opportunities by providing inspirational, world-class instruction. So that is pillar number one that has been drafted. So we go to the next page, and it gives some insight as to some preliminary thinking about goals. Close the academic achievement gap throughout the school system, support the intellectual, social, emotional, and physical development of all students, which is really getting at the whole student, and then deliver innovative, engaging, and challenging curriculum and programs. So that's a preliminary draft of those goals, just to add some little detailed thinking on the focus. The second area of strategic focus is an employee focus, healthy culture that supports high-performing teachers, leaders, and staff. And then we look at that statement of intention. Escambia County Public Schools values each team member by providing a safe workplace where employees are encouraged and supported, and in which leadership embraces a culture of collaboration. We vigorously promote and celebrate employee professional development and growth, amplifying experts within our ranks. So then we see some of the preliminary goals. Unify employee commitment and ownership of our mission. Effectively recruit and retain employees committed to our mission. Support a positive organizational climate. Moving to area of strategic focus number 3. This is a leadership focused, unified results focused leadership. And so we go to that statement of intention. High-performing systems and exceptional outcomes will be driven by intentional, unified, and aligned leadership. And in the goals, you'll see the term align a couple times. That's going to be a key piece. Align school-based planning with district-level strategic plan and key performance indicators, which you'll hear is referred to KPIs. Align systems to increase responsiveness, efficiency, and results. Communicate performance improvements proactively and with transparency. Now we move to the area of strategic focus number 4. It is the business focus, financial and operational stewardship. Statement of intention. Escambia County Public Schools responsibly allocates and expends resources strategically, efficiently, and with deliberate transparency. Every resource is prioritized for the benefit of students while best serving our community. Some preliminary draft goals are align, develop, and allocate resources with areas of strategic need, demonstrate financial transparency, operate safe, secure, and well-managed facilities, optimize operational support systems. And then our last area of strategic focus, number 5, is a community focus. Informed, engaged stakeholders as advocates. With a statement of intention, Escambia County Public Schools embraces community support by continuously creating avenues for communication, engagement, and advocacy. Preliminary goals: position Escambia County Public Schools as the first choice for education and employment. Promote community-wide advocacy and investment to support student success. Build community pride in and support for Escambia County Schools. So those are the 5 pillars, and in our next steps, you'll see a timeline we have presented here. So this is the video that you just saw. The plan is on April 18th to have that go out to employees. Leadership workshops to finalize the above-line plan during April and May. School board presentation of final above-the-line plan on the May 17th meeting. Another video update to employees in the community in May. Development of objectives for approved goals are in June and August. Share the strategic plan with employees in August. and Cascade Plan for Development of Departmental and School-Based Plans, August and September. And so if I can clarify that last item, what that's really talking about, because that goes, of course, into September, that's really getting into when our schools are writing their school improvement plans, and that's that time frame that they do that. What we're really looking for, and it goes back to that word, that term alignment, we want, in the past sometimes, I know I've experienced this where the vision and the mission is different than the district at the school site, where schools will come up with their own. We really want a strong alignment where that's all the same. So the vision for the district is the vision that we have, and the mission as well. So, but that, then these strategies start to get employed, and the whole purpose of this, and it's really exciting to see it come together and to coalesce after an extensive amount of input gathering, dialogue, discussion, input, and synthesis, is to have a very core-driven paradigm for our district, where when we're making decisions, we want them in line, because if we're doing that, it goes back to united for every student to succeed. And that's what we really want to drive at, is every student in our district is important, and we want them to graduate with great opportunities and go on and be productive citizens. So that is the presentation for today. Would encourage your thoughts and feedback on those 5 areas of focus. And you note they kind of, well, they do go with our organizational framework, with operations and finance, HR, and so forth. So they're kind of categorized with that in mind.
Thank you, sir. Any comments? Bill?
I like it. I like the feeling that it's directed by us, at us, for us to be one group working in the same direction. And to me, it's a lot of common sense. I want to address what Patty was talking about. Your last page in the presentation, do we have emails or whatever for each of the people that participated in the workshops? That page right there is a great update.
Yes.
It kind of tells you where we are, what we've been doing, and where we're going, instead of having to write another paper, do another thing, and everything. And at least it gives them maybe an answer. Now, Patty's the one that had more maybe discussion, but at the same time, if I received that, I'd say, oh, this is what's been going on. This is good. And then, with what you're saying is going to come out, and words to say more to come.
Yes.
We will, we're going to keep you involved, and I think that's an excellent point. Those people came, they gave a day, they worked, they had their ideas. What did you do with our ideas? This is what you're doing with our ideas. So I thank to the staff and everyone that's working on this. I like it.
Thank you.
Paul?
I agree with Mr. Slayton. I like it too. I like the way it's going. I like the way it's presented. It is clear. It is concise. It doesn't kill you with verbiage and detail at this point. I also like the process that's being used to go forward and get it into the hands of the school administration and the teachers, so that when the final product is complete, and though it will never be complete, as it evolves and starts getting used, there is the tie to the individual schools, and each school sees how they connect to the district.
Dr. Evans?
Thank you. I'd like to commend that committee that worked so hard on this to put this together. And certainly Mr. Dennis, I know it was in his heart. He wanted it done. It's a very professional presentation as far as I'm concerned. But I do believe that it does need to be on the web page with perhaps some music or something to bring it in. because it is the public that we want to reach, in addition to some other people that we want them to know what we're doing. And I believe that on that webpage at some point would be a good idea.
Thank you. Patty, you have another comment?
I'm hesitant to say anything since I just saw it. And maybe I need to ponder a bit. When I look at goals, I also think about how will I measure them. And I am not seeing a really clear-cut way to measure these goals. And I guess I also need to have some clarity on, because so much of it does seem inwardly focused. Will we also have a strategic plan, or will part of the strategic plan deal with actual, I shouldn't say actual, I can't think of another word. When we talk about student focus, for instance, ready to become productive citizens. Productive is kind of a unknown. And then when you look at the goals, I can see how we can measure whether we've closed the achievement gap. And I suppose we can figure out how to support, how to measure whether we have supported intellectually, social, emotional, physical development. But those are some of the conversations I need to have. If these are going to be our goals, how are we going to measure them? How are we going to know that we succeeded? How do we say to the community, to the public, we have been able to do this, and this has moved us forward? In the healthy culture that supports high-performing teachers. I know what we're trying to say is we're going to support all teachers so they become high-performing, but in some ways I read that and I think, are we supporting all teachers? Or are we going to make sure that we support teachers so they all become high-performing? But again, I'm just now looking at it. It's the first time I've seen it. It was very professionally done, very well organized. I just have to get my mind around a different way of looking at a strategic plan. This is, because as our training at Florida School Boards Association says, we as school board members are all about student achievement. And so I've got to make sure all of this stuff comes down to how are we making sure that we're educating all students. And so I just need to get my head around that.
I'd like to, my assumption is that this is the beginning framework. We started off with the 30,000 foot level. This is at the 20,000, and it's going to go down to ground level, but there will be a lot more steps that come up in May and June and July that will get more precise with much more measurable and distinct objectives under those goals. And so that's where I feel comfortable with what's here, because it's not so detailed yet. Because I think the people that have to implement those need to be the ones who help create them. Yes, Superintendent.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, because I think those are great thoughts. And I would agree with you that if we don't have, by the end of the process, if we don't have measurables, then we've missed the mark. And to Mr. Fetsko's point, you are exactly correct. Like the KPIs, those key performance indicators, I think once those are established, we'll start to see the measures, and they'll be designed to get into the detail of these specific areas. And I agree 100%. We have to have student learning. That's our core mission. And so we're going to have really important measurables in that. The other piece too, I think, Mr. Fetsko, to your earlier point, that I think this is a reality too. An important part of a strategic plan is ongoing work on it, because those KPIs may need to change from year to year. We may hit a certain level and we say, okay, we're ready for the next level, or whatever the case is. So I think it is a living, breathing document. But great points, because I agree. If it's not measurable, we've just left something undone.
Any additional comments? Okay, if not, Superintendent, do you have any additional comments before we move to the agenda? I was going to ask, before we go to the regular discussion agenda, would we like to take a 3 or 4 minute break? That'd be good? Okay. All right. We'll take a 3 or 4 minute break. So we'll be temporary, we'll suspend. Yeah, I don't know how long it's going to take us to get through this other part. seat. One demerit for Bill.
Mr. Chairman, can we have Cody just announce where that video is going to be? It's going to come out on Tuesday.
Sure. Cody, if you want to go ahead and tell the community how they'll be able to access that video.
So the plan is on Monday that we'll share that with employees first, and then we'll have that posted to the website on Tuesday and ready to go. So any community member, any stakeholder can have access to that.
Great. Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay, now we can move on to our agenda review. This month, Mrs. Hightower will bring the invocation and pledge. The committee departmental reports and special recognition, we have 6 items. We also have 1 resolution for adoption. Are there any questions or comments on these items?
Did you
Yes,
say
Patty?
we had 6 items under committee and departmental reports? Oh,
Special
okay, because I
recognition.
was looking
Yeah.
at mine and I didn't see
Yeah,
6.
it's all in Joy, yeah.
Okay.
That's fine, that's good. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody, so let's go on to our, does anybody have any comments regarding the minutes?
I asked Holly to, because it said in the agenda that we had the Health Academy from Workman, but it was both Health and Culinary Academy, so she
Okay.
reflected that.
And we appreciate the amazing job she does keeping that straight. All right, we have no unfinished business. We have 1 item under administrative appointments. Patty, you got a comment or? Oh, okay, I saw your light, so I didn't know.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, y'all been good about it this meeting. So, see a light on, I'm gonna turn to you.
It's so easy.
Yeah. We, sometimes you gotta see if they're leaning forward or, they put, wink an eye or whatever they're doing. All right. We have 3 items for a first reading. We're gonna take these one at a time. Underneath the proposed addition or revision rules, first is item A, changes to the school board policy chapter 2, human resources. Looking for, yes?
This is a new policy that is required by a legislative change.
Okay. Keeping us transparent, that's good. Any responses on the chapter 2 human resources changes? Oh, wow, okay. We'll go to item B, changes school board policy chapter 3, school operations. Okay. All right.
I'm trying to get it to come up, so that's the only.
Okay. We'll wait on you, Bill. Gave up on mine, I just closed it up.
Mine is still on minutes, so I don't.
It's on page 8 of 20 of this item. And just for the board's information, this is the rule governing the waiver of statutory protection for people to have firearms in their vehicles. That was passed as an emergency rule at the last board meeting. Those meetings are only valid for 90 days, and so this is the beginning of the process to adopt that as a final rule.
All right.
And I have, the verbiage has changed slightly from what currently exists in the emergency rule. The reason it is listed as all redlined rather than showing what the emergency rule was, the emergency rule is going to expire and it will cease to exist the day before this rule is adopted. So this is completely, it's marked up as completely new verbiage. And the language was changed to more closely track the statute. And to also clarify that we're just referring to students.
Just students, okay.
Us students, okay.
So that's it. Bill, do you Is it covered your area, or you?
I'm still trying to get back in. No, I heard the explanation. I'm fine as long as.
One issue that I did want to bring to your attention, I did speak with the general counsel to the sheriff's department and her assistant, and they had some concerns about whether or not we have the ability to how this would impact adult students, such as those who are attending George Stone. I am of the opinion, I have tried to reach out to the Attorney General's office. I've had absolutely no luck getting a return response. However, I feel comfortable with the language of the statute if it gives us the authority to waive the protections of 790.115 without specifically designating that it has to be, you know, students who are enrolled in secondary school as opposed to who are enrolled in adult education programs, that we have the authority to waive that. But I did want to make you aware that that is a concern and it's a question that the Sheriff's Department had.
For adult students at George Stone? Okay. Okay. So how would this standing, would
It would apply to them as well.
apply to them
If
as
they are
well?
a student enrolled in our program and on our school
So
premises.
if they're law enforcement, well.
No. If they are law enforcement, so the language of the of this
Okay.
rule, as I mentioned, it tracks the language of the statute, and it says that you can't have firearms on school grounds except as authorized in support of school-sanctioned activities. And that is construed to mean this rule does not apply to certified law enforcement officers, campus security officers, and contracted security personnel working within the scope of their employment, because that is, in fact, authorized in support of school-sanctioned activities.
Okay. All right. Yes, Bill?
How does that impact our law enforcement classes that we're teaching?
That is authorized in support of school-sanctioned activities.
Okay, so.
Just as our OTC students would.
Right.
So what you're saying, we got the ability to do a waiver on whatever little pieces that we need to do?
This is extremely limited in what it actually does.
Yeah.
The first paragraph tracks the language of the statute that says people cannot have guns, they cannot have firearms on school grounds, period, even if they have a concealed carry permit.
Right.
Unless it is in furtherance of a school-sanctioned activity. That's written in the statute. So if somebody is going to a firearms safety class and that they are authorized to carry their weapons securely encased to that class.
Okay.
So that exists now by operation of law. The question becomes, there is an exception to the prohibition for having firearms on school grounds, that a person can have it securely, they can have a firearm securely encased in their vehicle unless the school board waives their right to do that.
Okay. All right, and I know I heard Sheriff Simmons say that, you know, with this rule that we're doing, he would respond to an adult student.
Well, and again, I've not spoken with the sheriff on this directly, but I have spoken with his legal counsel. And as I mentioned, they had some concerns about whether or not this would apply to adult students. But this, as I see it, that's just a difference of opinion. And of course, the sheriff's department always retains the authority to decide whether or not they're going to make an arrest in a given case.
Right.
So if there's a situation where, you know, the facts, they don't feel that the facts warrant an arrest, it remains within their discretion to do that.
That's right. Paul, did you?
No, I left it on because, but you've been answering the questions as we went along. Again, so a person, an adult who was at George Stone or at any other campus who had concealed carry, had the weapon locked in their glove, in their car, is all right?
If they're a student?
No.
Right, if they are not a student,
Not a student.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
So Kevin's mother goes to visit him at Pine Forest High School. She has a concealed carry. She's locked it in her glove box. she's okay.
Absolutely.
right.
And in fact, she doesn't even have to have a concealed carry. If she's over the age of 18 and lawfully
Not a
owns the gun,
Yeah.
citizens in the state of Florida have the right to keep and bear arms securely locked in a conveyance, in their vehicle.
And my main concern was on how having a 12th grader, and because one birthday you're treating them one way.
Absolutely.
And then the other one's being treated another way, and that's what we're looking for. So, okay. Patty, you got your light on over there, did you? No? No? Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. All right.
Just waiting.
Okay, so any other comments on the policy? I'd like to thank the superintendent for coming up for a very good policy change that really hits the area that we want to have some control over. Yeah. Okay. Now we're going to go to changes to the R and R Handbook. I have a speaker, and I have somebody that donated some minutes to the speaker. Ben Shrek, is he here? You're donating your time, right? That's correct. Okay. And is your name Nancy Dole? Nancy, okay, if you want to come up. Okay, you got 6 minutes. All remarks should be addressed to the chairman. No personal attacks will be tolerated.
Okay.
When the buzzer goes off, you need to kind of close it up after that buzzer goes off, okay?
Okay, thank you,
All right.
Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your time. Again, my name is Nacy Dolar. I am a parent of 2 children who's going through or had gone through Escambia County's schools. I have a son who he recently graduated from Pensacola High School and on a scholarship at University of Notre Dame. And I currently have a junior that's in the IB program. So I'm really here today to share my family's experience and to request a stronger commitment to involve parents and students in the rights and responsibilities handbook draft, which will be presented during that June 21st public hearing. Last fall, my son, he submitted a petition to the principal with over 220 unique student signatures advocating for a policy change to allow students to sit in their cars in the parking lot before school starts. Via email, he requested a formal response from the administration to the signatories, parent community, and the student body as a whole. But instead, what happened is we were informed by our son that he was pulled out of his theory of knowledge class and escorted by the IB coordinator into a room with 2 school resource officers who outlined everything that they believed was incorrect on the petition. We believe that this activism was mishandled and that we had the right as parents to be informed about that planned meeting, to engage our son, who was a minor and at that time 15 years old, with those officers. We believe that this tactic was an intimidating circumstance under what we consider was a custodial situation. He was unaware of his rights before going in, during the meeting, and after that interaction. So when we found out about it, we immediately sent an email to the principal and the IB coordinator that evening, expressing our concern, requesting a response. But from that point, a series of events led to unimaginable retaliation toward our child. And instead of actually having a meaningful attempt to address the concerns that were brought up by the school community within that petition. So what happened is I reviewed the suggested changes in the Rights and Responsibilities Handbook, and I noticed that there were some additions that directly relates to what happens to us, and that there are some key gaps that I really feel need to be highlighted. One is right number 4, which students have the right to provide input into creating school rules. This should be followed up, in my opinion, with a retaliation clause to protect students. My son exercised his right but then he had no protection. No officers should have ever been used as a follow-up in that situation. Furthermore, I believe that there should be clear, actionable steps and outlets that are articulated to these students when they want to exercise their right to provide input. It was suggested by the principal to gather student consensus. So what did he do? He developed a petition. He used the typical way to garner support and to change, for change, and to gather consensus. But then there was no responsibility to formally respond to him to the entire community. Another addition is the level 2 infraction now that includes unauthorized assembly, publications, demonstrations, petitions, possessions, and or distribution of unauthorized publications. Well, including this clause does not give our kids any avenue to make a difference. Students should be allowed to exercise this right. Petitions are a fundamental strategy to raise concerns, and coming together in a civil manner to discuss issues demonstrates, in my opinion, leadership and shouldn't be considered a punitive action. Another addition in these level 2 infractions has to do with the parking lot violations. Student and parents need to know very clearly what those rules are and how they are going to be enforced. The circulated petition discussed these issues, but no communication took place about the sudden enforcement, and there has been no further follow-up of discussions with the school community about what happened. And lastly, there are no listed rules about interactions with school resource officers. At this time, students do not know what their legal rights are. So if they're called out of class in the middle of class and escorted to sworn police officers to discuss an advocacy action, do they have the right to leave? Should they remain silent? Should they be asked if they can call their parents to be notify them? What is the actual administration's role? And who is the watchdog when interacting with those officers at that point in time and in the future? So in closing, I know that this board is committed to community engagement and building trust together, but we can't do that without a more collaborative process in developing the rights and responsibilities draft that better represents the needs of students and parents throughout this district. I was just informed that there's been some movement on it, but having worked in government, I know that once you get to the point of public hearing, often only minor modifications happen.
That's your time. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, that closes the public forum on that topic. Do we have any comments by the, well, Mr. Superintendent, I mean, you may have just heard about this, but do you have any comments to this policy as it's written?
Not at this time. What I will do is collaborate with Mr. Tompkins. This is an extensive document with many elements to it. So.
Okay. Any comments from the board on this item C, changes to the R and R Handbook, on the policies that we have?
Okay, you're talking about the R and R Handbook as a whole?
Yes.
Not her?
Not
Okay.
specific, because, and I'll let you know, the superintendent will follow up, and in the next meeting, he'll provide a report to us on this public comment. So, unless the board wants to make a comment on it, but
Well, I just appreciate you bringing it forward at this time, because we have 2 months now where we'll have an opportunity for the public to share with us things of concern. But I also wanted to say that this is a publicly advertised meeting where they have them, where the citizens can come to the meetings. Our attorney goes to those meetings. I don't know whether any of the board members did. I think Dr. Roberts chaired the committee. And in the future, hopefully, maybe we didn't do as good a job of making the public aware that those meetings were taking place. So, but the public is invited to any of the meetings where we're discussing the amendments and all. But I appreciate you coming and sharing that with us. I had already looked at that myself, so.
Okay. Any other comments on this one?
I do have several
Okay.
on the handbook itself, but
Okay, yes.
I was going to wait and see if others.
Well, I was going to hold my comment on this till the superintendent takes a look in this matter, and you know, if there's an issue like that, please email your board members, you know, so your District 3 board members, so they're aware, and contact, but he'll check into this. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Excuse me. If we could, Dr. Roberts is prepared to come to the podium and listen to the feedback from you in regards to the R&R, and he can also explain, because there were, I think, 4 advertised meetings that took place. He chaired those meetings to get input on the revisions that are put forth in front of you today. So,
Well, I hadn't, he can go ahead and come on up, and we'll see if the board's got any questions for him. Huh? Oh, Ms. Hightower said she did? Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Roberts knows I'm always a problem
Okay.
child.
But I'm
Know
ready
me
for
long
it.
enough to
Bill's
know
getting
that.
straight.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you all for this opportunity. And before we get into the edits, revisions, and the changes that were made, I want to thank all of those who participated in the meetings that were held in this very room. We had parents who joined us, leaders from the community, school board representatives. There was an administrator from each of the levels. All of the directors were here, as well as Assistant Superintendent Steve Marcanio. The meetings were very productive, and there are meetings that are held every year annually to revise the Student Rights and Responsibility Handbook. And there were notices put out well in advance, inviting the public to participate in the edits and the revision of the handbook. And it was well attended each night. The major changes that I will bring to your attention basically were the discipline matrix. All of the other changes basically were edits, simple, nothing major. If you have any questions, before we do that, the matrix, everyone had input. Every change that was made that we will be bringing forth was a collaborative effort. Nothing was done in isolation. Everyone had an opportunity to voice their opinions, their concerns, and that's what we went with. The majority of those who participated in the committee are the ones who made the decisions and the edits that you have in front of you. Each of you should have received the copy. It looks sort of cumbersome, but once it is finalized, it's going to be no larger than it has been, if not somewhat smaller. The matrix, and I'm sharing opinions that were shared by the parents who participated, is more user-friendly, easier to follow, and I think we will agree once we see that.
You had the page number where it starts out, the level 1 for Elizabeth.
Oh, you want to know? I'm in there right now.
She's
43.
Yep.
Yes, 43.
Okay.
That's for the elementary matrix. And it's page
wherever it first
62
starts.
for secondary.
Okay. There we
You
go.
answer your question. Are we good?
Yeah, we're good now.
Those are the 2 major changes. And at this point, I'll open up the floor for any questions or any suggestions that we will then amend and make those changes as needed.
Ms. Hightower?
Thank you, and I want to thank Mr. Tompkins for reaching out. He helped me because when I was looking through the new matrix, the level 1, level 2, level 3, I was wondering why some of the things were building on the others and had some questions about that. So, I know this is always an arduous task, and I know that our school leadership comes in and helps you understand where their challenges are in the everyday life that they live. One of the things that I am hoping that maybe can be fixed, and I know Mr. Ingram is not here, but actually there are 5 different websites in the R and R book. One of them I understand, it's the Escambia yellow, that's the transportation. And all of them will get you to the same place, but one time we used www.escambiaschools.org. One time we use ECSD -FL.schoolloop. One time we'll use escambia.k12.fl.us. And then with virtual, of course, it's EVA-EC. And I understand they all get you to the place you want to be, but, you know, can we, at some point, if it's next year or something, come to an agreement on what our beginning is?
So, if I could, I mean, I think that's a great idea, and I know you mentioned that, Mrs. Hightower, when we talked, so we're prepared to do an amendment prior to Tuesday night's meeting, because we have been doing that. It seems like that's what happens every year. So we can get that fixed and do an amendment to it. I will tell you that we have found, and it's really rather embarrassing, but we found a date error on this very first page, which is page 2 of the document, on the student calendar at the top, where it should say June 30th, 2023, and it does not. It says 2022. So I think we'll need to do an amendment on that, and we're prepared to do some other things if necessary.
Does the board mind doing the change that Ms. Hightower's requesting? You okay? On, huh? On the.
Set your light on.
Mr. Fetsko was talking, I mean, Mr. Marcanio was talking.
But what I'm asking the board right now, because he's asking, are we okay with the changing the website address and standardizing? Any board member has a problem with it?
Well, what I think I understood him to be asking is he knows that there may be some other things that come forward and that we'll be ready to accept an edit that they make between now and Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'm fine if it's just an edit. For correction.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
also.
okay.
So is there a preferred,
I'm going to let them be the one. I just think we ought to have one.
And I was thinking in my mind, there could be actually different, I don't know which.
Well, there's always a slash and it goes to a certain thing, but.
Right.
But
It may be some domains they've got, and IT would have to answer that.
We will get with Mr. Branton or Mr. Ingram and figure out the correct way to be consistent with those.
Okay, well, it appears the board is okay with that changes. Okay.
So,
Okay.
All right,
Yes.
Dr. Edler?
I like the cover.
We thank you, Dr. Edmond.
Absolutely. Color is always stimulating, motivating, and encouraging. I would, if you can, go back and all those little bitty ones, pictures, graphics. If somewhere periodically you could have something colorful and larger. I don't believe that it's necessary to have something graphic over every topic or paragraph, just somewhere within the book, so that if I'm on one page and I see another color, I'm going to be drawn to that area.
Noted.
Absolutely. So, but I do want to appreciate the effort that has been put into this book. When we look at the reading level of a lot of people, if we get to a 7th grade, we're doing well. And that if the parents cannot read what's in that book, then they are more likely not going to follow it. And so I do appreciate you all going through it and trying to make it more user-friendly.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And while they're waiting, I'll make one comment. I talked to Mr. Marcanio about it. I'm glad we're off the metrics with all the alphabetical soup that we had going on, because the superintendent knows one of my issues is we get in this issue of one school, one person will judge an incident at one level versus another level. And I hope this kind of strengthens, so when we see a video and it's an obvious, should be a higher punishment, that it's more clarified with this more streamlined process between level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So that's what I'm hoping, and we had talked about that, because it seems like some people will see a fight differently than the next, and then when we see a video, then it's actually much more severe.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Any other comments?
I have a lot.
Okay, you've had your light on the whole time. I was going to ignore it. Go ahead.
On page 19, B under E, it talks about in-school, out-of-school suspension in lieu of, and then in the next paragraph, it uses the acronyms, and I was thinking it might be beneficial to put the acronym after the word, so that any time in the rest of the document, you actually have it, the acronym spelled, know what it's standing for.
Should have it at least the first time.
On page 37, it talks about bus tickets, but I think I've decided that I would like to have us, I know I've talked to Ms. Odom and about that we're going to have a parent handbook, and I don't know how many others have had calls this year about the bus tickets where a student's name changes and then they don't have him on the bus. So I think there needs to be some comment in that parent handbook about who's responsible, so they don't just, they assume they give it to the school and the school will take care of it. So if that is in fact the truth, then we need to reference that in some way, or if they're supposed to get in touch with transportation about it themselves.
Ellen?
There is a provision in board policy that says that any legal documentation affecting a student, if it's a name change, if it's a custodial situation, it is absolutely the parent's obligation to bring that to our attention. But that being said, I certainly understand that we could always do with more clarity on.
Well, yeah, I guess the question is, if they tell the school, is that sufficient? Is the breakdown between them telling the school and then that not being communicated to transportation? So that was just, because it's a couple of times in the last month that's happened.
And frankly,
Darlene may have an answer. But I just think it's good if we put that in the parent handbook, then that way they know what the process is.
Okay for Darlene to come up and address this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And may I ask, what page are we on?
37 was where that was. That's what brought it to my mind, was the bus tickets, but it doesn't need to be in this document.
There's no change to that.
No,
Thank you. That was
no.
my next question. Thank you.
Because it's not something the student necessarily needs to know to be successful.
Okay, Darlene.
The conflict occurs because when a student's name's changed in Focus, that student comes as a new student to Route Finder. And so if that student had an accommodation, that would fall off, and we would not catch that, because if the student was out of district or had an approved accommodation to go to grandmother's or something like that,
I just had one of those.
that would completely fall off. We would not be able to even see that because the student's name, he appears as a brand new student. And so that is a problem. If the school, when that happens, and it's so rare, but when it does happen, it's a big problem. If the school would let us know, and we have a Google form for them to request bus tickets, and we fulfill them. If they make the request before 11 every day, the student's able to ride home on the bus that afternoon. So it's very simple, and a note, there's a note section in there so that the school can let us know, same student, different name. Easy, and that way it would be streamlined and the student wouldn't suffer, or the parents.
Well, I think it's interesting, and I want to just say, Ms. Hart has been amazing. You call her and she can fix it, but the parents are stressed when they call because all of a sudden their child is not entitled to ride on the bus, or there's somebody giving them issues about that. So, and we find, because with technology and our changeover, that there are things that we can fix that we just didn't know were broken until that one child has this issue. So I'm not taking this as anything. It's just identifying where there's an issue and then us fixing it so it doesn't happen to the next child.
Absolutely.
And Darlene, how many students are you transporting approximately right now?
Right at 18,000.
Yeah, so that's a big group of kids, so appreciate it.
It may be a little more, but I know that last counts it was 17,997 or something like that, so.
Well, we appreciate what you're doing with that transportation. Yes, sir.
If I can note, Dr. Roberts, if we could check in with IT on that to see maybe there's something we can do. with that program.
So noted.
Yeah,
Because it'd be nice if that
maybe a
information
new
could
code in there or
transfer.
something. Okay, any other comments on?
Next.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Patty.
On page 38, under the authority of the school bus operator, I think everything is fine, but I just want to, there is a portion in the behavior issues, a portion that talks about misbehavior on the bus. And one thing that I want to make sure people understand, because it says, the school bus operator has the authority to manage students transported to and from school. And I have on occasion been told by bus operators that they have shared disciplinary action with administrations at the school and it doesn't go anywhere. And so I had this conversation with Mr. Tompkins about that. So, you know, I don't know that there's something more stronger that we could put there, something like the school bus operator operates like as your principal when you're on my bus, just to make sure that people understand that that person has that authority while they're being transported. So, but that was just a comment I wanted to make. Then on page 45, that probably won't necessitate a change, Mr. Marcanio, but page 45, I shared, I think Mr. Tompkins will be able to answer the question that I asked him on why, which is unsubstantiated harassment, and the thing in the box talks about bullying, and I didn't know whether bullying was supposed to still be there or should it say harassment.
Are
He
you
was
in
going to
box?
look it up.
Where are you at, Ms. Hightower?
I'm on page
45.
45 of
Why?
why.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, it should say harassment to answer your question
Okay.
there. That is just a simple edit that needs to be made. As far as
Are we referring to letter Y?
Why?
In the narrative in letter Y?
The narrative in letter Y.
strike bullying, add harassment.
Thank you.
Next.
Okay, also on pages 43 and 47, when it talks about abusive behavior, I shared that Mr. Tompkins knows all this. It says various behaviors which may be aggressive. I suggested to him that we remove the word various and just say behaviors, because various is kind of ambiguous and might lead to misunderstandings. But if you just say behaviors, which may be aggressive, cohesive.
So is that on page 43 and 47?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
You're good, Paul? Dr. Eller? Bill? Okay. Like that board support on that one.
Page 43 and 47. It's in
And
the
Dr. Roberts?
level 1 and level 2 infractions.
This is just a scrivener's error on this that needs to be corrected. There's a period at the end of controlling, and it should be at the end of the last parenthetical.
Okay, and where's that at?
It's
That's in the
that
same thing, same one. I don't know how many people you can get to read something and you'll still find that you've got a period or a comma in the wrong place.
Thank you. So noted.
And I would also note that E disorderly does not have a period at the end of that. I would request that when reviewing this again, we go through and make sure that there's if we're going to put a period at the end of each entry, we need to make sure it's there for all of them.
And we planned on doing that, and I was going to get with you on that in regards to this amendment, Ms. Odom, because when I write the summary page and explain what we did to amend this, is it going to be that I need to, every time we put a period in, am I going to need to say where, or can we just come up with a general statement that says grammatical errors were corrected throughout, that kind of thing?
If the superintendent has the authority to correct scrivener's
Correct.
errors without
Going through the amendment process.
Right, so no, you don't need to indicate if something is true. For instance, that
Yes.
one moving a period from here to
Yes.
there, that does not need to be reflected.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Or the other options, it's reflected in the motion itself that.
Absolutely.
We will go through it all again. We've gotten some other feedback with some of those other areas also. Thank you.
Another question I had asked Mr. Tompkins is, you know, often it will say in the consequences, intervention program. And I will say I have not read this with the due diligence that I probably should have. But I didn't know whether there was somewhere in the book itself that it told what the intervention programs that might be selected, like a toolbox of intervention programs and that might be employed. Do we have that anywhere?
So I'm looking at, like on page 50, Mrs. Hightower?
Yeah.
And number 9, is that what you're referring to? Because it says Suite 360.
Well, but I think it's on level 4, maybe. I don't, and there's, you know,
Okay, level
where
4, it just says intervention
yeah,
program?
yeah.
So,
and again, that may not need to go in here. It may just
So
need
you're
to be
wanting us to list
somewhere,
what those intervention options are?
like a toolbox of intervention programs that might be, because I think sometimes, and I know, I see two sides. If you put them in and they're not used, does that give somebody, we can talk to the attorney about this, but if you put it in as intervention program options kind of thing, so.
What we were talking about when we left it, well, when the committee left it at intervention programs, the reasoning for intervention programs, we have the REACH program that comes in, we have CDAC that comes in, and for different things, and so to list everything that we have may become very burdensome. So if we could keep it that way, or we would have to make a statement, but not limited to, if we did something like that.
Okay.
But it'd be the board's pleasure.
Y'all can.
I would prefer just say intervention programs, and then it's a litany that's the choice of the committee or whoever is deciding which is the appropriate one for that student and that infraction.
I agree. See Bill's shaking. Dr. Heather, you agree? Yeah. Okay. Wow.
And then in the glossary,
what page, Ms. Hightower?
I'm looking to see, I don't think I wrote down what page the glossary was on. It's toward the end. 90, it's toward the end, I just knew that much. We took out bullying from the glossary. And I just wondered why we chose to delete bullying and cyberbullying from the glossary.
The reason for that was they are defined in the matrix itself.
Okay.
And it seemed to be a bit redundant to have it in the glossary, but if you think it offers greater clarity, there's certainly is nothing wrong with, if I remember correctly, the phrasing might have been slightly different between what was in the glossary and what was in the new matrix language. And I just wanted to make sure that if we're using this definition here, we either don't have it elsewhere or we make sure that they're consistent.
Well, then that goes back to when you're in the questions and it says bullying is, and it's different, although it refers you to 2 pages later on in the book. And my caution is be sure that those are going to be the right pages when it's put back together, if you're going to refer them to a specific page.
We will have to make very sure of that, because the pages will change when the changes are accepted.
Okay.
But is there a
What is
specific change?
P3? It's
P3 is the app that it goes along with Crime Stoppers. It was presented to y'all, I think, about 2 years ago. And we've really made the shift at Crime Stoppers going from we still use 433 STOP, but every student Chromebook has the P3 app on it. They can click it, and so that's more useful for the student, and that's what the handbook's supposed to be for. And so the committee decided to put the P3 app on everything.
I thought that was what it was, but I wasn't sure where it was located. So it's on every Chromebook.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That wasn't so hard, was it?
Well, I'm still standing.
She's got 5 more pages. Hey, Dr. Roberts, she's got 5 more pages.
No, I think this was a major undertaking, and I shared with Mr. Tompkins, I've shared with Ms. Odom, and I've shared with Dr. Roberts. It's still too long. Too many pages. if we're really expecting kids to read this, it needs to have more pictures, it needs to have fewer words.
Mike?
Yeah, but I'm just saying that, you know, I know that sometimes it's for clarity legally that we have to have so many words in here, but yeah, I just think it's.
Yes, sir, Mr. Superintendent?
If I can just piggyback on that comment, I think that is a really important point, because we want our students to be able to quickly access the information. I think at times our students will indeed look at that. It could be a day in the middle of the year. You know, typically we have students really look at this at the beginning of the year, beginning of the quarters, but you could have we need accessibility is my point. And so we have talked about having a succinct piece that could go on the Chromebook, you know, almost maybe not an app, but like that, a icon to click on where it just gives you the matrix piece as opposed to the other 80 pages, you know. So that is one possibility moving forward that we can explore, because it would be great for a student to have two. You click on the long one or the short one,
Right.
you know, and you have plenty of
Summarize
access.
it in one and details another.
And
Yes.
as we met in the committee and talked about here as we were doing this, it was explained by the deans and teachers and others that the Rights and Responsibilities Handbook is gone over with teachers in the classroom at the beginning of the school year, and they go the elementary level, and so that the teachers are explaining those at an age-appropriate, developmentally understandable way. So that does happen, although they may not sit there and read the book themselves. Each one goes through, and at the secondary, it's done with even more detail.
Correct.
Okay, any additional questions, comments?
So,
Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for the feedback, and we will make those, we've taken those suggestions to heart. Thank you.
Mr. Adams,
Oh, wait.
if I could, I did want to make the board aware that as part of the community engagement I really, really enjoyed working with Dr. Roberts on this, but he invited a mother and son to participate in the committee, and he is a high school student. His name is Ira.
Woodfalk, yes.
And it was really, really neat to see a student actively engaged in the process of setting forth the rules. And he made some suggestions that actually were incorporated into it. And I encouraged his mom to consider bringing him to the meeting when this final rule is adopted, so he can see that his participation actually resulted in real change. And those are just some of the things that are going on in the school district that you guys don't have the opportunity to see, but I wanted to make sure that you were aware of it.
Thank you. Yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, if I could, then I always like to just make sure I know exactly what we're charged to do as far as the revisions. So we're going to fix the website, so everywhere that the district's main website is listed, we'll figure out how to be consistent with that. On page 2, we're going to correct the date of the year to make sure it says 2023. Dr. Edler asked to try to add some color to some of the graphics, and so we'll take a look at that. And on I'm sorry?
You gotta have
Okay.
a mic in.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. And then on page 19, where we mention in lieu of removal, we'll put that in parentheses ILR the first time it's listed. Correct, Mrs. Hightower?
Well, actually, all three of those.
Yes.
There was ISS, IO, all of those.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. And then if I could, there's one more thing that we found out that the legislature wants in this book that came to my attention just the other day. I got your attention. You may recall Mrs. White shared with you the new Worlds of Reading program, where the legislature is providing, or the state is providing books for students at the elementary level that perform below grade level. And we have found out that we're required to include information about that in the student handbook. So with your permission, in the elementary section, we will just add a little paragraph that explains that also. Just because they said they want it in the handbook. Is that okay? We really think it belongs more in our student progression plan because it's really a curriculum thing. And if you tell me to put it in the student progression plan, we will instead of the handbook. But as long as we're talking about it here, we can do that.
Was that some DOE, was that, I don't recall that in the legislation. Was that in DOE guidance?
It's in the guidance that we have, yeah.
I have no problems including it there. Do you?
At this point, I think I like it in the handbook because I know that the handbook's reviewed where the student progression plan is not always reviewed the same way at the school level with students. I don't, and again, I don't sit in every classroom, but I don't remember a lot of teachers sharing the student progression plan with
Well, you're
elementary.
correct. Yeah, you're correct. It's shared with students. The R and R is. So we'll add that to the elementary section then. Thank you.
Did you get that other one? The removing various from page 43 and 47?
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you.
And the bullying, harassment substituted for bullying.
I made note of those also. Thank you.
I did want to make the board aware that with the New Worlds Reading Initiative, the legislation requires us to notify parents whose students are reading at a certain grade level of the availability of this program. And it's my understanding that that is done independently of the R and R Handbook.
Absolutely.
So those notifications are being made. It's just that apparently DOE wants us to also include that in the R and R Handbook as an extra measure of notification.
And I'll share that with you so you can
Certainly.
see why we're saying that we have to do that, Ms. Odom. So thank you.
Did that cover all the edits?
Yeah, I think you got them all.
Okay.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Because the R&R book is online, it's going to be online. Is it searchable? Like if you just needed to do one word, you could put that one word in and that information would pop up? Like if you put in level 1, it's going to pull?
I would have to go online and check. I can't really tell you if it is or not.
Okay. Well, if it's not, do it.
Okay. All right.
I think Board Docs makes it, if it's on Board Docs, I think it can be searchable. But I don't know whether on our website it is.
If it's a PDF up there,
Because
you
if we
can
put
search
it
it
as a
like
policy.
Okay, well, I've got it up right now,
Okay.
and the answer is yes. In Board Docs, it's searchable. I just searched the word level, and it's in there 141 times.
Okay.
So that was pretty quick that I did that for you, Mrs. Hightower. It's done, yes.
You have a comment, Elizabeth? Oh,
I apologize, I have a question. So
Okay.
when I went to find the glossary, because I did what Mr. Marcano did, and I typed in glossary, and it shows up in the table of contents. Not that I just spelled that wrong. But in the table of contents, it says it's on page 90. That's why I said that. But then when I clicked on it, it's on page 131. So
Okay.
is there a page numbering?
The page numbers in the table of contents are all wrong because until we accept changes to this,
Okay.
they won't
Just
be
wanted to make
correct.
sure I didn't give someone the wrong
So,
page number.
yes, I'm sorry, we should have made that clear ahead of time, but
That'd be why you
all of
had
that will
rules.
be corrected and validated once the changes are accepted after it's adopted. Thank you.
all right.
We'll take care of it.
Ms. Hightower, are you complete? Okay, all right. Just wanted to make sure. Okay, we're going to move on. So there are no items requiring a public hearing. Going to the consent agenda, are there any items to be discussed? And we'll start with curriculum 8 through 19.
I had one, I'm trying to, well, no, never mind, it's under purchasing.
Anything under curriculum? All right, next we're going to move to finance.
I did have one thing
all right.
on the instructional materials adoption, because that is 15A. and I appreciate Mr. Marcanio getting Ms. White to give me a call to explain to me, because if you notice, there's a first choice and a second choice. And so I said, you know, why do we have to have two choices? And so she explained that to me. And the thing I wanted to share with you is I had an opportunity to speak with our legislative delegation today individually. And I told them about the situation with us having to make our adoption before the state tells us what they're doing. And I thought that might be something they could work on. And they said, yes, they may be calling you.
All right, if that's it for curriculum, we'll move to finance, 22-24.
Under purchasing, because that's finance, right? You're doing all the finance?
Yeah, is it? Yep.
Okay. Finance, my first one, I talked to Mr. Marcanio, and he's assured me everything's okay, but I need my attorney to say that. So it's the Pensacola Bay Center. It's our annual contract with the, for graduations. But when you look at the information about time of usage, it has us starting at 9, and that's our first graduation. And I just wanted to make sure, Mr. Marcanio has assured me that they had this meeting, and they certainly know that we're going to be there before 9, but I wanted to make sure that it was okay that they don't have it specific in the contract.
This is the way it has been done, and again, the way things have always been done is not always the best reason to continue to do things.
That's right.
But the standard of the pattern of practice of the parties to this agreement has always been that, Ms. Morgan would certainly be in a far better position than I to weigh in on this, but it's my understanding that this is the pattern and practice of the parties to this agreement.
I just wanted to make sure.
Is it, the time they've gotten that is that the billable type hours, or?
As I understand it, it's a flat rate.
Flat rate, okay. I was just wondering if that had something to do with the.
Okay. I have another one.
Okay.
24V, the marketing services agreement. So this is an amendment that will cost us an additional amount of money? Or is this? Because it looks like it's an additional almost $17,000. V, as in victory.
So we're wanting to know if this is a cost, right?
So, Ms.
Cost, I
Ms.
mean,
Watson, could you come give us some insight on that?
because I have the 3 contracts that we have already done with ID Group. And I got the invoices. And I'm just kind of wondering where we are. The last contract we did was, make sure I got the last one. Yeah, July 2021. And I think, I want to know where we are with, because that was a contract for $152,500. And I don't believe the podcasts were listed as one of the deliverables, but so I just kind of want to know where this is fitting in, because we haven't finished phase 2, I don't think, but maybe we have, and I'm just not aware of it.
Yes, this is an amendment to add the production of the 15 podcasts, and they wanted to start the work in April, so it is an addition outside the contract, so that's why we had to do the amendment for it.
But the contract says it started March 1st?
That's for the podcast production timeline.
Could you come closer to the mic when you're talking? Yes, thank you.
In the first paragraph, it says the Amendment 1 to the Marketing Services Agreement to be effective retroactively March 1st, 2022.
Yes, that's in case they had done some work prior to us getting it to the board, and so we wanted to make sure we were going to cover that in the amendment.
Okay, have they?
I don't know for sure. I would have to check with Mr. Dennis to see where they're
Mr.
at.
Strother can.
They hadn't done any work yet. They have.
What is it they're going to, I mean, I know what a podcast is, but if we're starting now, it's the middle of April,
Right.
and it goes to the end of June.
With the idea that we'll start releasing these late May, building up to the start of school, just to get some information out about the things we're doing, the strategic planning process, great things that are going on in the district, trying to build that brand image. It's a marketing stream, basically.
I guess doing it right before the summer break, I'm just, I don't know what kind of podcast we're putting together, what we're doing. I mean, we just watched the early learning students with a video that I suspect somebody in our departments did, either our students themselves, and it was well done. And so I just kind of need more information on what's going to be done. 15 podcasts.
So that's part of the form you referenced earlier that I sent out, collecting these good community-wide great happenings that are going on in the district. If we're moving forward with the theme of unity, and we're trying to build trust and confidence with our stakeholders, our employees, our community, we thought it was important that we highlight these good things that are going on in the district, get out and be transparent with some of our new initiatives. And so we proposed to start this podcast project where we'd come up with a list of 15 to start with, get those into production, and get them set on a schedule for release.
And will we own these after they're done?
Absolutely. The idea is, I'm not aware that we have the experience at present in the district to produce something like this at a high level. And so the idea is, if we enter into this, then along the way, our people come in and we start training, and eventually this is a process that is handed over to us.
I would like to see, if I might, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, ma'am.
I would like to see something written in where they're using our students as interns as they're doing this process.
Okay, we can look into that.
Now, I'm still a little confused myself. Is this a no-cost amendment?
No.
No.
$16,096.
Oh, $16,000? Okay. But they haven't completed the other contract.
Yeah, and it was not listed. There was video production and some other things like that in this first one, and I assume those video productions are the ones you've done, because I don't know of any others that have been done.
So how much of work's been completed on the other project for that amount of money that's on the contract she was talking about, the prior contract?
The 150?
Yeah.
So, Cody, we've been working on that throughout the year. We haven't spent all that yet.
I should have added it all up, but I
We've-
didn't.
I don't have the firm expenses in front of me, but.
Okay. Yeah, there.
And you too can have these. Ms. Buswell has copies,
Okay.
but I haven't added them all.
And one of the things
But
is
we're tracking this ongoing on how much money because we've already gave them a certain pot of money.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, and
So
now we're
there's,
asking for another pot of money coming on top of it, so.
right, so
From
there's different categories of invoices. So there's strategic planning, there's marketing and so forth. So you
Okay.
have different kind of categories, but they're doing those different services. So that's, when you add up all the invoices, we're about that total, but that's not all from the one, it's from the different categories. If that, I don't know if that's clear, but.
Well,
that's-
and the other thing that makes it complicated for us to figure out, or for me, I should not speak for us, for me, is we've had 3 contracts. The first one got rolled into the second one because the first one was for a total of,
60,000?
first one was 30,000. First one was 30,000, but then COVID hit. And so then the second one was, I think, 90. The second one is, where is it? I think it's 90. For some reason, I'm thinking it's 90. And we had, if it's 90, we spent 90 on it. But this one ran through the end of July, or
Will end in July.
of 2021.
Okay.
This one started, and it's the one that's 152.5, but it's hard to go back and see. I have the dates on the invoices, so I know which ones go with which contract, but, you know, without having that whole big picture of this has been done, I just kind of wondered what the podcasts were going to be and how it fits in with the rest of the things, so.
When I saw this, I actually was very happy to see that we were doing something that was going to produce content that was going to go out to the public and or to the community. And again, you know, that the podcasts were not part of the original contract, and this is something that's, as others have been, that other parts have been worked on and developed. It was a desire on our part to have the podcast developed, and so we've gone through with that, and this is different from what was originally done and agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it is a part of that whole marketing plan that we as a board have asked for several years.
Get the good news out.
And so, and Mr. Strother has vetted the topics and worked with a team to come up with ones that should be done, and not necessarily a rank order, but that have greater impact.
Correct.
And so that's what I see this doing, and I'm very supportive of it.
But I still would like to see some of our students involved in this process. We encourage members of our community to hire to work with our early learning, you know, whatever our academies are. And I think it's an opportunity for our students to be able to be involved in this process if there's time for them to do it. But
Without a doubt, and that we have academies that dovetail into this and would work very well, but I think then that does have to be a conversation to be held and to see to what level and how much and which academies, because we have multimedia academies at just about all the schools. And maybe it's something we also would need to do then with the workforce department itself and some of the specialists in there to say, hey, to come up with, okay, how do we get the students involved and make sure it's a cross-section of all the schools and not just one?
yeah, I see Mr. Harrell's here. Might I ask him to come forward so I could ask him a question?
absolutely.
Not to put him on the spot. I am. Yeah, I'm going to put him on the spot, and then I'm going to have to leave. So how do you, I mean, I didn't run this by him. So, I mean, do you think we have students that would be interested in this opportunity? Okay, just talk loud. Use your teacher voice.
Yeah, I'll use my teacher voice. It's a distinct possibility, but we need to make sure that
But we need to make sure that it integrates with the curriculum that they're working on in those programs, and we have some that would be appropriate. We just need a reasonable time frame. I mean, we can pretty much make anything happen if it's something that we can edit with our equipment that we have and that the students can spend some time on, but it's all about aligning with what objectives they're learning in their class at that time, or we would have to do it as a extracurricular type activity, which we do sometimes. So all of this is possible. We just need a little bit of time and reasonable deadlines for that, and we can make it happen.
Yes, Mr.
I think, though, it's also fair to say we're looking for a professional product, and we need to go to the professionals if we want it to be that type of product. I love for our students to get involved, but I don't know how deep Mr. Harrell's pockets are, but I bet their equipment's quite costly. And I bet they've done this before. And I don't believe you have a teacher employed this summer. So you would have to come up with a salary for someone to be with the students.
And a willing participant as well that doesn't have other plans for the summer. In terms of the equipment and the software, what we have is, top notch. Our students use what industry professionals use. We have 4K cameras. I believe we even have one 8K camera that, I'm not worried about that. But the professionalism does come down to getting the right shot up front. You've got the right lighting techniques, and we have people who can do all of that, but it's all about time. The cost involved is cost of manpower and time for them.
Right. Thank you.
I think also that if we did not inform or consult with the ID group beforehand, that us saying now that we want them to also have students trained may be something that could cause them some hesitation.
I was actually
like, it's kind of like adding something on after the process. What I saw this is we have content that we want to get out. And in the future, any others with ID group, we would say, and we would like you to have a training component or a apprentice type situation with some of our students. But to do that to them at this moment and expect that it's all copacetic, I don't know.
Yeah, and that's my concern is that they may want a little extra money if they're going to get into working with students and all that. So
Sorry,
I don't
our
want
students should be paid to work for them.
Well, okay, you're one board member, but they would have to come, and we've already got this thing up in cost. So that's my concern right there, is that if we can do it without interfering with what they're getting paid for. Yes.
With future things, I agree.
So let's don't make any more additional costs if we have to. Okay, Patty's gone.
I'd like an edited version of that.
I didn't mean it that way.
That's even worse than what I said.
Where am I now, Elizabeth? I think we're moved into human resources.
I think the word is in trouble.
So, scroll to human resources. Keith, how are we looking on our teacher shortages and our bus driver shortages and everything else?
I can currently speak to where we are on the hiring side with our instructional staff.
Okay.
And then I'll try to give you a little bit on the ESP side. Last night at 7:00 p.m. we completed the priority transfer. We had 140-ish people transfer from one school to another school.
Wow.
We will get all of the people there in HR will work hard to get all that assigned, those individuals assigned to their new site in draft form, and begin to post all of the new positions for next school year on Monday. We have recruited, I want to say it's right at 39 direct hires right out of college.
I saw y'all's trips, yeah.
Had 3 last week at Jacksonville State, a couple the week before at Jackson State. So we've had a very fruitful spring in recruiting new teachers to the ranks. We are going to have a couple of centralized hiring events after we get to the end of school year, and those will be for all employee types, and then we will focus on bus drivers. Elizabeth was just talking to me about this yesterday. Food service workers in that first hiring event. And then we'll do some centralized, where I know I talked about maybe us being able to do some things in HR. We also have about 5 schools, I won't mention any specific names, that we really want to focus in on this summer and getting them fully staffed. And the preliminary discussions is to have a hiring event for those individual principals and assistant principals and teacher leader groups at those schools where they can come in and participate. Darlene and Kate and Jelena and Mr. Beagle are doing everything they can to hire as many people in those ESP groups, and we'll continue to work with them and assist them. One thing I do want to make you aware of, if you don't already know, Miss Elizabeth Oakes, who is our Director of Human Resources, she will be leaving us, so we will be looking to replace that position. But I want to publicly thank Elizabeth for the hard work and dedication she has provided to our school district and specifically to our human resources staff. So if you listen, Elizabeth, thank you for everything you've done, and we'll miss you. So I want to be sure you're aware of that.
Thanks. Thanks for the information. Okay. And I suppose, Superintendent, we're going to be keying in on those kids that could be brought up to grade level. That's why we're getting all the teachers and the buses be rolling this summer. I think I saw Santa Rosa County, they had in the paper either focusing on that group of students. I assume we're doing the same thing.
Yes, absolutely. And you heard Mr. Leonard when he referred to the 5 schools that haven't been named. We're really looking at schools where there's been some difficulty in getting staff all year long. And that can really be a huge impact on the learning taking place. So really appreciate Mr. Leonard's leadership, he and his team. They've been really working hard. In fact, they've been going around the southeastern part of the country.
All over the place, yeah.
Trying to get people, and I really tip my hat to that team because they have dug in and they're working hard to get as many people. It's a competitive field out there right now. So every time we hear a hire, we're happy.
Yes, sir.
We've got a new person coming to teach with us. So,
sure.
Yeah.
And I tell my parents when they're concerned, I say, it's state, it's not just a county or statewide, it's a national issue all across, yeah. Okay, we're still in human resources. Anybody has anything in that area? Oh. Okay, lastly, we got operations, 39.
Where's Keith? Come on, Keith.
Sir.
Just really curious, where are we going to put additional parking at, first of all, start with Molina Park?
There's a couple of areas that we're looking at. There's one area, if you're familiar with the campus, where the bus loop comes around, there's an area to a grassy area. That's one of the areas we're putting additional parking in that location.
Bratt?
Bratt, same thing. We got another area shifting some of the parking around once we get the covered play building built. Some areas that we'll have to address for parking there as well.
I mean, that's a tough campus.
It's a tough campus, it is, yes, sir.
It's very tight.
Right, and this is a common phenomenon across the district. We just have a lot of more and more people at the campus, and it was never intended to have that many parking, especially these older facilities.
And Northview?
Northview is a multitude of areas that we're dealing with. Has to do with their ADA compliance associated with their athletic areas, some sidewalks and those things. These are all capital outlay requests that they've made as part of their upgrades on the campus.
Okay, it's good. It's just, are we going to be able to complete these type of things during the summer?
That's our intent, yes, sir. Yeah, we want to get these things knocked out so that we can be done when they come back to school August 10th.
Because that's, yeah, with student, I mean, only one of them has student parking, but that's always a problem. All right. Is the handrail thing on stadiums, that's just general?
Yes, sir. It's a safety issue. This is just an upgrade at all the high school stadiums. We broke them into two, the northern high schools and the southern high schools, just for convenience purposes. And that's a replacement of the handrails on both sides. It was just safety upgrades as usual.
Okay. And then explain to me the tracks at Tate and Northview.
Tracks at Tate and Northview these are resurfacing and repainting of the tracks. We are starting the initiative of rubberizing the tracks. However, most of these tracks need to be resurfaced with asphalt prior to putting the rubberized tracks. So this buys us some time to get our primary focus right now is getting Pine Forest track rubberized and ready to go, and then we'll systematically work around to the other tracks as we move.
But you're going to be working at Northview and Tate. What is your timeline on that?
We're trying to do it between the track season and football season. That gets tight, so it's very intense.
That's like starting tomorrow.
Exactly. Tate also has there's a drainage issue that we've got to deal with there. We have a sinkhole at the football stadium that we're going to tie into one of those.
The whole football stadium is a sinkhole.
Well, that is true, sir.
But yeah, I mean, the drainage was never planned.
Right, and it hasn't improved with age.
Is this going to allow vehicles to be on these tracks?
When it's rubberized, no.
No, before.
Yeah, right now, yes, it should be fine. Yeah, they should be able to do what they need to, as they've always done, where they'll use, some type of vehicle traffic during homecoming and those type of things. But once they're rubberized, it's going to require a different change in how we do things.
What's it going to cost us to rubberize at Pine Forest?
I think we're going to be somewhere in the $350,000 range on that. That's for the rubberization. That's not all the infrastructure that's going into it. That project as a whole is about a budget of about $1 million. Because we're going to have to increase the size of the track. We're going to have to make some of the stadium changes to it. One of the things that we're doing there, we're annexing a portion of the baseball field that they chose to move to the West Florida campus, leaving that area not really used. It was damaged significantly during Sally. So we're getting about a $250,000 nut to be utilized how we want to on that, and we're using that to apply to putting track and field events there. So we'll move their track and field events outside of the stadium, so you'll get your shot put and your discus and your broad jump and those things will move into that field. And it'll really be a premier track and field event. It'll be right in the central county, so it's going to be really a good location for track events, regional type track events, which we can't host right now because we only have one rubberized track.
You got a lot of work to do.
Yes, sir, I do. And that's just tip of the iceberg.
Thank you very much.
But don't go nowhere.
No, sir.
But I want to thank you personally because, we've had a situation at Beale Elementary.
Yes, sir.
And I took that picture of the students on those picnic tables and the quick reaction of getting a canopy. So at least they got some protection. And for the board's knowledge, everything that we were using before where they can get out to the buses for weather and everything else is gone. Okay, it's all construction. And I was out there the other day and they appreciate it. It don't get all the kids underneath there, but at least they're getting the younger kids and the older. And
lunch out there too. On the nice day. They're actually eating lunch out there on the nicer days too.
Oh yeah, they could. Yes. And I'm glad you came up with that temporary tent because it wouldn't make sense putting anything permanent because we wouldn't know what the final outcome of that school is going to be, especially when you're in a census sector with 60% growth.
Sure.
Okay,
That's
it's
exactly
Beulah. Okay, so I appreciate it. It's been a struggle, and appreciate Kyle back there with the deputies we got, the 2 deputies, and I also appreciate the community for their patience, because we got people that don't have kids at that school and everything, and they're just trying to get to work. So I appreciate the superintendent and the staff for all they have done to make that. Now, I do have a request.
Yes, sir.
That we get the new roundabout, new car lane done before August 10th. Okay? We got to give Woodside back to Woodside.
That's our entire
Yes.
focus right now. Of course, we're moving forward. We had to get the building out of the building materials out of the way and lay down yard so we could actually get that car rider line in and that bus rider loop in. But that's our intent, is to have that done and have them the ability to go through the kindergarten wing into the building. It'll have a covered area. Even if the cafeteria is not finished and we're not complete with the interior renovations, we will draw back to our perimeter at that point.
Yeah, and I want to say appreciation to Commissioner Bergosh, because he's getting incoming on this too, and I've explained the situation. We all know it's going to be better for the community and the school once we're done, because there'll be improvements for the car rider line area. And also, you know, you can get those 600 students for each at a time to eat in that cafeteria.
That's right.
So,
We'll be able to feed much more.
yeah, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other questions while we have up here?
Where is the pond at Washington High School?
This is the infamous pond that has flooded Home Elementary School twice.
Okay.
And if you'll recall, last year we did this in 2 phases. We just didn't, it was too large to do in one summer. Last summer we cleaned the pond out, got all of the debris out, the trees and whatnot. We built a ramp in and we took the pond down 2 feet. It has not gotten anywhere near the level it needed to flood the school. This brings it down an additional, I think it's 8 feet, to the level that it's designed for to deal with a 500-year flood. The good news is, thanks to David Bryant, a lot of work that he's done in portion of this, we're being reimbursed by FEMA for this, I think to the tune of about $1.3 million, and we're somewhere in the $1 million range on this. So this has been very successful. So we'll have a very nice $1 million hole in the ground.
Yeah.
So is this something that Dr. Roberts did while he was principal there? I'm just real curious. I didn't know he built him a pond out there.
Don't dig too deep, you may find somebody.
I know, how deep can we go? David, thank you very much for your work with FEMA. That's outstanding. But you're right, we've done 2 floodings.
We've rebuilt the school twice since 2014, the flood we had in April of 2014. And every time it rains like it did last night, I cringe.
How often are we having a 500-year flood?
We have a 500-year flood about every 2 years.
Every 2 years?
Quite frequently. That's right.
It's crazy. I mean,
it is.
And there's no way for that water to get out in that area. I mean,
No, that system pops off into a very ancient system that's part of the 9th Avenue mess that always floods. But we will be able to retain the water that we should be able to retain in that pond. There's a multitude of issues with it, but this is the fix, and we're real pleased that FEMA's partnering with us on this.
Okay.
We sure are.
Yes, sir.
Well, good job. Keep up the good work.
Mr. Cassart put some decent fish in there this time.
That's right.
I'll make sure he does.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Huh.
Okay, there are no items from the board this month. Next, we have items from the superintendent. Mr. Superintendent.
It's normal.
Any comments on the items from the superintendent? My computer's not working, so I'm going to have to look up overhead to see where we're at.
No, disciplinary reassignments and formal hearing.
We are
41. I told Mr. Leonard the other day, he has no recommendations for employees, but the weekend hasn't come.
Yep. Okay, we have one item from the internal auditing. Any responses to that? Any comments?
Report on 9 call centers.
Yep.
Mr. David, is there anything you need to tell us on those?
Good job. Keep it up.
Thank you.
Okay. No items from the general counsel, although she has spoken a lot today. No, this brings up public forums. You can tell we're getting here at the end. So, this brings
Early, Ellen, there's no telling what he'll say.
This brings us up public forum. I have no speaker forum, so we're okay there. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I do have some add deletes. And one of them in particular I would like to draw attention to. It's the second one. The first one is under Section 8, under consent curriculum alternative education, we deleted item C. And that's an amendment to the cooperative agreement with the Florida Department of Juvenile Justice. And that's a result of recent legislation requiring some changes. So we're going to resubmit that on the May agenda. The second one is under Section 24 on the consent agenda, finance and purchasing. And it's item W that we're adding an RFP award for learning walks for coaching services for principals. And I want to thank Allison Watson for her work on this, Brian Alaback, his work on this. This is a huge initiative where we are procuring services for experts to come in, walk classrooms with our principals in a growth mindset coaching approach. So it's designed to support our principals and have them just continuously grow in the coaching dynamic on instruction and providing feedback. So I know as an educator, I've experienced that myself, and it was one of the best professional development experiences. Well, it was one of the top 5 probably that I've had in my career. So I'm really, really excited for our principals. Just can't wait for them to experience that. And want to thank our team for the great work that you all have done, and Ms. Odom for your work on that. I know there was a time crunch, and we're just excited about getting this on this agenda. So thank you.
Okay, anything else for the good of the order? I hope everybody enjoys the Easter weekend, and we are now adjourned.